Chapter 710. Underground River. My injuries have finally healed completely, but the side effects of this secret technique are a little troublesome. Slowly getting up, if one looked closely, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with a strange scarlet light, causing Zhuowen to look exceptionally demonic at this moment. In a month's time, Zhuowen had basically killed all the pythons in the underground river. Now, the underground river was like a pool of stagnant water, without any ripples at all, and the shore had become a bloody hell. With so many pythons killed, the resentment produced was extremely terrifying. This resentment accumulated in Zhuowen's body, causing Zhuowen's mind to be filled with thoughts of killing from time to time, which was why his eyes were so bloodshot. However, Zhuowen's willpower was far stronger than ordinary people. Although the resentment accumulated in his body was very strong, it was forcefully suppressed by Zhuowen. Bending down, he carried the demon-suppressing green coffin on his shoulder. Instantly, Zhuowen realized that the resentment in his body was being absorbed by the demon-suppressing green coffin like a tidal wave, and the scarlet light in Zhuowen's eyes also slowly receded. Feeling the resentment in his body dissipating, Zhuowen knew that this resentment had been absorbed by the blood demon. There is a beast spirit at the bottom of the underground river. Help me obtain this beast spirit. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out in Zhuowen's mind. Xiaohe? Hearing this voice, Zhuowen's face was filled with joy. He never thought that Xiaohe would wake up at this moment. Ever since Xiaohe had materialized his armor spirit in order to save Zhuowen in the Baichuan Marquis residence, he had not woken up since then, and Zhuowen had always felt guilty about it. Now that he saw that Xiaohe had awakened, Zhuowen was naturally extremely happy. This Dragon Lord's vitality has been greatly damaged, and this awakening is only temporary. This Dragon Lord can sense that there is a beast spirit at the bottom of the underground river. If you obtain this beast spirit, this Dragon Lord will devour this beast spirit, and this Dragon Lord should be able to completely awaken. Xiaohe's voice sounded extremely tired, and his voice became softer and softer. Brat, this Dragon Lord cannot be awake for too long. Remember, you must retrieve that beast spirit, otherwise this Dragon Lord can only continue to sleep. After saying this, Xiaohe's voice completely disappeared. Zhuowen knew that Xiaohe had probably fallen into a deep sleep again. Beast spirit? Staring at the river ahead, Zhuowen's eyes flickered. Zhuowen was no stranger to beast spirits. A beast spirit was the spirit of a meta-beast. Meta-beasts that possessed a beast spirit were basically at the fourth reverend realm and above. It was just like how a human martial artist would form a nascent soul in his dantian when his cultivation reached the fourth reverend realm. When a meta-beast's strength reached the Four Supremes realm, its body would also nurture a meta-beast spirit. In fact, this beast spirit's function was equivalent to the nascent soul of a Four Supremes realm martial artist. Once the meta-beast's physical body was destroyed, it could still rely on the beast spirit to survive. However, its strength would be greatly reduced, and it would not be able to come into contact with the outside world for a long time. Without a physical body, the power of a beast spirit would continuously decrease over time. Therefore, most beast spirits would seal themselves in a remote place and wait for their vitality to recover and rebuild their physical body. Zhuowen did not expect that there would actually be a beast spirit at the bottom of the underground river. If it was not for Xiaohe's reminder, he would have missed it. Let's go in and take a look. Since the beast spirit was extremely important to Xiaohe, Zhuowen would not sit back and do nothing. With a stomp of his foot, he jumped into the underground river. The water of the underground river was ink black. After Zhuowen dived into the water, his vision was not very far, and he could only rely on his mental strength to explore his surroundings. It's really deep. After diving for more than 2 hours, Zhuowen was shocked to discover that he had not reached the bottom of the river. He had already dived for nearly 1,000 meters. After diving for another hour, Zhuowen finally reached the bottom of the river. Stepping on the soft riverbed, Zhuowen used his mental strength to vigilantly survey his surroundings. Using his mental strength, Zhuowen was shocked to discover that there were layers of cliffs at the bottom of the riverbed. At the bottom of the cliffs, there was a dilapidated cave entrance. This cave entrance was extremely deep, as if it was bottomless. The beast spirit should be in the cave entrance. There was nothing else around the cliffs. Zhuan knew that the chances of the beast spirit being in the cave entrance were very high. Thinking of this, Zhuan stomped his foot and turned into a shadow as he flew into the cave entrance. Inside the cave entrance was a narrow tunnel. The tunnel was filled with bumpy grooves, like the skin of a toad. It was extremely ugly. After walking for about 10 minutes, Zhuan discovered that the tunnel actually curved upwards. With a stomp of his foot, with the buoyancy of the water current, Zhuan's speed increased by a lot as he floated upwards. After another 10 minutes, the sound of water splashing could be heard. Following that, Zhuan leaped up and executed his movement skill, landing in a stone cave. There was not the slightest bit of water flow in this place. Instead, there was air flowing. This made Zhuan rather surprised that there was such a space at the bottom of the underground river. It seems that the beast spirit is in there. There must be a reason for this abnormality. Zhuan knew that for there to be such an unsuitable space at the bottom of the underground river, there must be some kind of secret inside. Let's go in and take a look. As he spoke, Zhuan flew towards the space in front of him. A white light flashed in front of him, causing Zhuan's speed to increase by a lot. When Zhuan completely arrived at the white light, a strong white light flashed past, causing Zhuan to involuntarily squint his eyes. Slowly opening his eyes, Zhuan suddenly discovered that what appeared in front of him was a rather spacious stone hall. In the middle of the stone hall, there were two balls of light floating quietly. The ball of light on the left had a baby-like figure curled up quietly. The ball of light on the right was not in the shape of a human. Instead, it was in the shape of a tiger or leopard. A nascent soul and a beast spirit? Looking at the ball of light in the middle, Zhuan's eyes lit up, and a look of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. A beast spirit was naturally of no use to Zhuan. However, a nascent soul was much more beneficial to Zhuan. A nascent soul contained the powerful energy of a fourth revered martial artist. If Zhuan could obtain it, then Zhuan could use the rich energy of the nascent soul to break through to the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm. The aura of a beast spirit. The moment Zhuan stepped into the stone hall, Xiao Hei's voice rang out in Zhuan's mind once again. Following that, a black light flashed out from between Zhuan's brows and turned into a Xiao Hei dog. At this moment, Xiao Hei's spirit body was rather dim. It was obvious that it was the aftereffect of forcefully materializing the armor spirit back then. Until now, it had not fully recovered. In an instant, Xiao Hei pounced on the beast spirit. There was a thirsty light in its eyes, causing Zhuan's hair to stand on end. Xiao Hei's arrival immediately alerted the beast spirit. The beast spirit in the ball of light suddenly opened its eyes and stared at Xiao Hei, who was flying towards it with a ferocious glint in its eyes. A terrifying aura poured out. You dare to compete with me in terms of aura? You're courting death. Xiao Hei cursed. An even more terrifying aura was released from its small body and instantly suppressed the aura on the beast spirit. The moment Xiao Hei released the aura from its body, the beast spirit in the ball of light was filled with fear. With a whoosh, it actually fled towards the exit. Xiao Hei's aura was too terrifying. This was definitely a meta beast of a higher level than it. You're already right in front of me. Do you think you can still escape? Xiao Hei laughed coldly. With a wave of its little paw, an ink-black energy surged out and turned into a rope. It tied up the escaping beast spirit. Then, Xiao Hei pounced on it ungracefully and opened its mouth to take a bite. In an instant, the beast spirit was swallowed into Xiao Hei's stomach. Xiao Hei's originally dim spirit body became more solid after swallowing the beast spirit. This beast spirit's power is too weak. It's only from the Xuanzuan realm. The energy of this beast spirit is too little. Xiao Hei smacked its lips and complained unhappily. Looking at the shameless Xiao Hei, Zhuan's face was filled with black lines. However, he was extremely happy. Although Xiao Hei's vitality had not fully recovered, at least it would not fall into a deep sleep after swallowing the beast spirit. Your luck is pretty good. There is actually a nascent soul in this stone hall. However, this nascent soul was not too strong when it was alive. It was only from the Xuanzuan realm. Xiao Hei glanced at the nascent soul and lightly said. Zhuan nodded. Even if it was only the nascent soul of a Xuanzuan realm martial artist, the energy contained within was enough to help Zhuowen break through to the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm. It was even possible that he could reach a higher level. If he could smoothly break through to the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm, then by relying on his spear intent, he wouldn't need to fear Huangfu Wuji. As for Grand Lily, Zhuowen wasn't too sure. If his guess wasn't wrong, then Grand Lily's cultivation should be around the ultimate eight-wheel emperor realm. When Grand Lily had chased after Zhuowen, he was afraid that Grand Lily hadn't used its full strength. If Grand Lily had used its full strength, then even Zhuowen would have been in danger. As he thought of Grand Lily and Huangfu Wuji, Zhuowen's eyes filled with a thick chill. These two people had forced Zhuowen into such a sorry state. Zhuowen would not let this matter rest. I must increase my strength as soon as possible. Zhuowen knew that if he wanted to settle this debt, then he would have to increase his own strength. With Zhuowen's current strength, he could definitely enter the top 10 rankings of the Azure Emperor Proclamation. However, entering the top 5 would be difficult. There were only 5 spots available to enter Jiaxin College. Only the top 5 geniuses on the Azure Emperor Proclamation would be able to obtain a spot. This nascent soul has suffered heavy injuries. It has actually fallen into a coma. Take it and refine it. Xiao He arrived in front of the nascent soul and pulled it out with its small claws. With a wave of its claws, the nascent soul was tossed into Zhuowen's hands. The moment Zhuowen touched the nascent soul, he could feel an extremely surging energy within it. This energy far surpassed what an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator should possess. There's only a month left until the Peach Blossom Origin Diagram adventure. I hope that I can thoroughly refine this nascent soul in this month. Zhuowen had nearly 100 marks on his body. He knew that entering the top 100 rankings of the Azure Emperor Proclamation shouldn't be a problem, so he didn't plan on competing with the other geniuses. After all, if he went out, Huangfu Wuji and Grand Lily would probably catch wind of this. Although his injuries were healed, his strength was still insufficient. There was no need for him to go out and attract attention. Chapter 7:11. Ranking of the 9 counties. Time flew by quickly. There was only a month left before the Peach Blossom Origin Diagram closed. During this month, the geniuses in the Heart of Darkness went crazy. If they wanted to enter the top 100 of the Azure Emperor rankings, they had to fight with their lives on the line and obtain as many imprints as possible. Otherwise, they would still be eliminated in the end. This month was the most intense month of competition. Almost every place in the Heart of Darkness had intense fights. The losers would either be killed or discard their imprints and be eliminated. On the other hand, the top 10 monstrous geniuses of the previous Green Emperor leaderboard had ceased their activities in the last month. They had already collected enough seals in the past 2 months, so there was no need for them to compete for more seals. Those who were fighting for the imprints were basically those who weren't ranked very high or those who had just risen up. When a month passed and there was only 1 day left, the number of cultivators left in the Heart of Darkness dwindled. There were less than 200 of them left. On the last day, Zhuowen, who was in the cave at the bottom of the underground river, silently opened his eyes. At this moment, the aura around his body had reached its peak. The nascent soul in his right hand, which was originally several feet large, had shrunk to half its original size. Rumble! A terrifying aura surged out from Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen slowly raised his head. His eyes shone brightly and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He had successfully broken through to the ultimate 7 wheels Emperor realm. All that was left was to wait for the 7 wheels of heaven and earth tribulation. Above the underground river, countless dark clouds slowly gathered. They were like black dragons that covered the entire sky. Lightning flashed between the clouds like pythons as a terrifying heavenly aura slowly descended. To Zhuowen, the 7 rounds of heaven and earth tribulation lightning tribulations weren't difficult at all. This was especially so after Zhuowen's great son Nirvana had broken through to the 2nd level. With the strength of his physical body, he didn't fear the lightning tribulations at all. Rumble! Bolts of lightning struck down from the dark clouds and drilled into the dark river, bombarding Zhuowen, who was hiding in the cliff at the bottom of the dark river. Suddenly, the entire cliff shattered into pieces, revealing Zhuowen's figure. At the bottom of the river, Zhuowen raised his head and looked at the lightning bolts that were rushing towards him. He was not afraid at all. He stretched out his right hand, and golden light covered his body. He directly grabbed the lightning bolts in his hand, and with a clench of his fist, the lightning bolts shattered into nothingness. Boom! Boom! Bolts of lightning came crashing down. Zhuowen did not have any defensive measures. He simply waved his hand and annihilated the bolts of lightning into nothingness. Zhuowen's physical body was too strong. Even though these thunderbolts were extremely powerful, they still couldn't hurt Zhuowen in the slightest. There were a total of 49 lightning strikes, and the last one was the most powerful. Furthermore, it was not an ordinary light blue lightning, but a strange purple lightning. The power of this last purple lightning was extremely terrifying. Even Zhuowen had to arrange the greater limitless sword array around his body in order to barely block this purple lightning. When the last purple lightning was annihilated, Zhuowen stomped his foot and leapt up from the bottom of the dark river, landing on the bank of the dark river. His eyes flashed with a bright light. He had finally broken through to the ultimate seven-will emperor realm. With his spear intent, Zhuowen no longer feared Huangfu Wuji. Not long after Zhuowen successfully crossed the tribulation, the entire peach blossom origin diagram was filled with the sound of breaking air. All of the martial artists in the heart of darkness looked up at the sky. They were stunned to find that above the void, there were actually countless white pillars of light. The white pillars of light filled every corner of the heart of darkness. Wherever there were martial artists, the white pillars of light would sweep towards them. A pillar of light passed through the cliff and swept towards the dark river. At this moment, Zhuowen, who was standing on the bank, was caught off guard and was immediately hit by this pillar of light. Zhuowen did not overreact. The moment the pillar of light swept into his body, he only felt a trace of warmth. At the same time, an oppressive voice sounded in his mind. Martial artists in the peach blossom origin diagram, the trial of the peach blossom origin diagram has come to an end. This emperor will now teleport everyone out. Do not resist. The owner of this majestic voice was the Azure Emperor. Zhuowen did not resist, allowing the power of the pillar of light to pull him out of the peach blossom origin diagram. The pillars of light that flew into the heart of darkness rose into the sky at the same time, disappearing in the blink of an eye. When Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes, what appeared in front of him was a large square made of white marble. At the end of the square was an extremely majestic palace. It was the Golden Imperial Palace. At this moment, in front of the Golden Imperial Palace, there was a row of long tables. On the tables, the Azure Emperor and the other almighty experts were all sitting, their gazes focused on the returning geniuses in the square. There is still half a day left before the 1-year period ends. Since the Azure Emperor has already teleported us out, it can only mean that the heart of darkness has already filtered out only 100 geniuses. Looking around at the similarly confused faces of the surrounding geniuses, Zhuowen discovered that the number of geniuses that had appeared in the square was just over 100. The trial of the peach blossom origin diagram did not necessarily have to end after a year. If the numerous geniuses that had entered the peach blossom origin diagram had been eliminated in advance, and there were just 100 geniuses left, the Azure Emperor would have ended the trial of the peach blossom origin diagram. Good. You are indeed fine. 2 crisp voices sounded out. Qing Lian and Luo Xing immediately saw Zhuowen and hurried to Zhuowen's side, their beautiful faces filled with joy. They never thought that Zhuowen would actually be able to successfully escape from Huangfu Wuji's hands. It seemed that Zhuowen was much stronger than they had imagined. Zhuowen smiled and nodded. Zhuowen was not surprised that Qing Lian and Luo Xing had entered the top 100. After all, the two of them had close to 100 imprints on them. As long as the two of them paid attention and did not rashly fight others, it would be very easy for them to last until the end. Of the top 100 geniuses, besides the 3 of them from Muqin County, Elvitao had also successfully entered. However, what surprised Zhuowen was that Ling Wushuang, who was not particularly strong, had also entered the top 100. Zhu Qi, who did not have much of a relationship with Zhuowen, had also smoothly entered the top 100. Besides Zhu Qi, there were 2 other geniuses from the house of Marquis Qin that had also entered the top 100. In other words, there were 8 geniuses from Muqing County that had entered the top 100. This number was already very good, and it was even possible for them to enter the top 3 of the Battle of the 9 Counties. What's going on? How come that boy Zhuan didn't die? Even Grand Lily made a move, but she still didn't manage to kill him? Not too far away, Huangfu Wuji also noticed the figure of Zhuan that had appeared in the top 100. He frowned. He was well aware of Grand Lily's strength. Killing Zhuan should have been an easy matter for her. On the other side, Grand Lily also noticed the lively Zhuan. Her beautiful eyes couldn't help but shrink as her eyebrows furrowed together. He actually didn't die after falling off the cliff. This Zhuowen's life is really great. However, once the ranking tournament begins, his luck will not be so good. Her beautiful eyes narrowed, Grand Lily's face was filled with a dark chill. She had to thoroughly eradicate this boy Zhuan. Not only because Zhuan had the marriage contract, but also because Zhuan had spoken rudely to her many times in the heart of darkness. Just this point alone was enough for Grand Lily to sentence Zhuan to death in her heart. Zhuan also noticed Huangfu Wuji and Grand Lily's unfriendly gazes. The corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a cold smile. Even if these 2 didn't look for him, Yi Lituan would look for them. If it weren't for Huangfu Wuji and Grand Lily, then Zhuan wouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state in the heart of darkness. He had even narrowly escaped death. The Battle of the 9 Counties has come to an end. Congratulations to those who entered the top 100. You will have the opportunity to enter the Azure Emperor list and become the new top 100 geniuses of the Azure Emperor list. At the center of the table, the Azure Emperor slowly stood up, a warm smile on his face like a spring breeze. The Battle of the 9 Counties has come to an end. Now, this emperor will announce the final rankings of the 9 counties. The rankings are based on the number of geniuses that have entered the Azure Emperor list. The greater the number, the higher the ranking. As soon as the Azure Emperor said this, the other almighties on the table nodded. In fact, they already knew in their hearts how many geniuses had been selected. After all, the 100 people had appeared before them. They all knew how many geniuses under their command had been selected. Among them, the one with the ugliest expression was the Lifire County Lord, Flamewing. His Lifire County's geniuses had almost been completely annihilated. Even the number 1 genius, young Master Lai Yun, had been killed. Without a doubt, the Lifire County was at the bottom of the rankings. Many of the supreme elders on the table looked at Flamewing with ridicule in their eyes. Among them, the proudest one was naturally Lu Hantian. At the beginning, Flamewing had been so arrogant in front of him. Lu Hantian had long since founded an eyesore. Fortunately, Thuan had fought for him and exterminated all the geniuses of the Lifire County, restoring the dignity of the Muqing County. First place is the Imperial Capital County. There are a total of 56 geniuses that have entered the Azure Emperor list. As the Azure Emperor spoke, everyone remained silent. The Imperial Capital County was the leader of the 9 counties. Among them, the 5 great clans, Azure Dragon Branch Temple, and the Imperial family were all forces that were not weaker than the county lords. In fact, they were even more terrifying than some of the county lords. The Imperial Capital County had many talents and was much stronger than the other 8 counties. Therefore, no one was too surprised that more than half of the geniuses had entered the Azure Emperor list. Second place, Muqing County, 8 geniuses entered. As soon as he said this, many people around looked at Lu Hantian in surprise. This time, Muqing County was really proud and elated. They had improved so much. They had directly gone from the second last place in the last competition to the second place in this competition. Of course, Muqing County's achievements were mostly due to Zhuowen's efforts. If Zhuowen had not exterminated all the geniuses of the Lifire County, the geniuses of the other Muqing counties would have been targeted by the Lifire County. At that time, they would have suffered heavy losses. Third place, Icebound County, 7 geniuses entered. 8th place, Lifire County, 1 geniuses entered. 9th place, Lifire County, no one entered. When the Azure Emperor announced the last Livefire County, the atmosphere suddenly became strange. Everyone stared at Flamewing with strange gazes. Chapter 7:12. Rainbow Essence Soul Stone. The Azure Emperor stared at Flamewing's departing figure and didn't say anything. Instead, he stared at Zhuowen, who was standing in the middle of the plaza. Zhuowen was getting more and more interesting. He was not simple to be able to make the Lihua County so miserable. The results of the 9 counties ranking are out. Next up is the Azure Emperor leaderboard ranking battle that everyone is looking forward to. The Lotus Emperor stood up slowly and his clear voice resounded throughout the entire square. It was like thunder, enlightening everyone. Hearing this, all the geniuses in the square looked at Emperor Qing with great anticipation. Many of them did not care about the top 100 on the Azure Emperor leaderboard. What they cared about was the ranking battle that the Lotus Emperor mentioned. I have promised that I will personally enlighten the top 10 on the Azure Emperor leaderboard. The top 5 will each receive a heaven-rank spiritual treasure and the right to participate in the entrance test of Jiaxin Academy. The top 3 will receive all the rewards and I will personally confer them the title of Marquis. They will enjoy supreme status and glory. The corners of the Lotus Emperor's mouth curled up as he felt the burning gazes from the crowd. He announced the rewards of the ranking battle to the public. A wave of discussion broke out in the square. The geniuses' eyes were filled with anticipation. The Lotus Emperor's rewards were too generous. They were so generous that they were overwhelmed with excitement. The empowerment of an Imperial Power Realm expert. It is said that this kind of enlightenment does not have any side effects and can increase one's cultivation level by 100%. If one's cultivation level reaches the ultimate 9-wheel Emperor realm, he can definitely advance to the Xuanzun realm with the Lotus Emperor's enlightenment. That's right. Let's see if we can enter the top 10 on the Azure Emperor leaderboard. This is a rare opportunity. Difficult. The current top 10 on the Azure Emperor leaderboard are all monstrous geniuses. It will be harder than ascending to heaven to shake their positions. Many of the geniuses in the square were in high spirits. However, there were also many who shook their heads and sighed. They knew that it would be difficult for them to enter the top 10 on the Azure Emperor leaderboard. The ranking tournament will be held in 3 months. The location will be in the Plaza of the Throne Room. I hope that everyone can use these 3 months to properly consolidate their cultivation. With that, Emperor Qing flicked his sleeves, turned around, and entered the throne room alone without any hesitation. Above the throne room, Mu Shui and Elder Qiu stood quietly on the huge vermilion bird, overlooking the many geniuses in the square below. Miss Zhuowen's talent was indeed not bad, and his progress was also quite fast. However, with his current strength, it's a little difficult for him to enter the top 5 of the Azure Emperor leaderboard. Elder Qiu shook his head. Elder Qiu, you are wrong. He has great potential. He is a carp that has yet to transform into a dragon. All he needs is an opportunity, and Zhuowen will transform into a dragon one day. And that day won't be too far away. Mu Shui gently brushed aside the messy hair on her forehead as her beautiful eyes stared at the figure below. Her voice was as clear as a lark. Even if this child enters the top 5 of the Azure Emperor leaderboard, not just anyone can pass the entrance test of the Divine Academy. Only those monstrous geniuses in the Eastern lands have a chance of passing the entrance test. In my opinion, in the entire Qingxian Empire, only the first prince, Huangfu Wudao, has a slight chance of passing the entrance test of the Divine Academy. As for the others, the chances are too low. Elder Qiu shook his head. He was still not very optimistic about Zhuowen. Although Zhuowen's progress was indeed fast, his cultivation was still too low. Not to mention Mu Shui, he was not even comparable to the weakest genius of the Divine Academy. Elder Qiu, when we return, go to the Drunken Spring Pavilion on my behalf and give this item to Jun. Mu Shui's beautiful eyes flickered as she stretched out her slender, jade-like hand. In the center of her flawless palm, a 7-colored crystal had unknowingly appeared. It flickered with a rather gorgeous 7-colored light. 7-colored soul essence stone? Miss, you actually want to give this item to that brat Zhuowen? This is absolutely not possible. This old man cannot agree. Looking at the seven-colored crystal in Mu Shue's palm, Elder Qiu's expression changed greatly. There was a trace of shock and anger in his voice. He was very clear about how important this seven-colored soul essence stone was to Mu Shui. Elder Qiu, don't tell me you won't even listen to my words? Mu Shue's beautiful face that was as calm as water finally revealed a trace of a strange expression. Her voice contained a trace of displeasure. But Elder Qiu still wanted to say something, but unfortunately he was rudely interrupted by Mu Shui. No buts. I've already made up my mind. If you won't give it to him, then I will, Mu Shui said coldly. Sigh. This old man will send it to the drunken spring pavilion tonight. With a low sigh, Elder Qiu finally compromised. He was very clear about Mu Shui's stubborn character. She would definitely not change her mind once she had decided on something. Elder Qiu, thank you very much this time. Seeing that Elder Qiu had agreed, Mu Shui's voice became much gentler. This matter has been settled. Let's return first. When night falls, this old man will personally make a trip to the drunken spring pavilion. Elder Qiu nodded. With a wave of his sleeve, he directed the vermilion bird to leave the throne room. On the square, after the Azure Emperor left, the various almighties on the table walked into the square and came to the side of their respective subordinates. Yuan, what you did this time was really satisfying. When you killed young Master Lai Yun, the expression on Flaming Flame's face was extremely interesting. As soon as Lu Hantian arrived at the square, he put his arm around Zhuowen's shoulder and gave him a thumbs up. Lu Hantian, who was behind Lu Nantian, was also full of smiles. In the previous War of the Nine Counties, their Muqin County had been targeted by the Lihua County. Almost all of their troops had been annihilated. The two counties could be said to be feuds. This time, Zhuowen had domineeringly killed young Master Lai Yun and the other geniuses of the Lifire Prefecture, ruthlessly ruining the prestige of the Lifire Prefecture. Lu Nantian was secretly delighted in his heart, and the more he looked at Zhuowen, the more pleasing he felt to the eye. At this moment, Elvitao had also gathered beside Zhuowen. He naturally knew nothing about Zhuowen killing the geniuses of the Lihua County. However, from Lu Hantian's words, he knew the whole story. Zhuowen, did you really kill young Master Lai Yun of the Lihua County? Elvitao was still in disbelief. Sir Lai Yun was ranked above him, and his strength had reached the late stage of the six-wheel emperor realm. He was extremely powerful. Although Elvitao admitted that Zhuowen was very powerful, he should not be so ridiculously powerful that even Sir Lai Yun had been killed. Young Master Lai Yun was indeed killed by Zhuowen. Also, Zhuowen's current cultivation is extremely high. He's already at the peak of the ultimate emperor realm. In the heart of darkness, even when Ao Xue avoided him. Zhuowen hadn't spoken when Luo Xing, who stood by his side, spoke before him, and her beautiful eyes carried a wisp of burning desire. Until now, the scene of Zhuowen killing the geniuses of the Lihua County, killing young Master Lai Yun, and forcing Wen Ao Xue to retreat for the extreme violet ice grass was deeply imprinted in Luo Xing's mind. Originally, Luo Xing had a rather good impression of Zhuowen. Coupled with the fact that he had obtained the extreme violet ice grass for her in the heart of darkness, and when she thought of Zhuowen's powerful figure, Luo Xing worshipped Zhuowen. Seeing Luo Xing's appearance, Elvitao smiled bitterly. With his keen insight, he could naturally see that Luo Xing's attitude toward Zhuowen was not ordinary. She had probably already fallen in love with Yun. However, what shocked Elvitao even more was Zhuowen's cultivation. Before entering the Peach Blossom origin diagram, Zhuowen's cultivation had clearly been on par with his, but now it had far surpassed his. In the Peach Blossom origin diagram, Elvitao's cultivation had naturally improved as well. He had reached the mid-stage of the ultimate emperor realm, but compared to Zhuowen, he paled in comparison. The peak of the ultimate emperor realm, coupled with Zhuowen's own comprehension of spear intent, no wonder young Master Lai Yun had been defeated by Zhuowen. Zhuowen did not say anything. If they knew that his true cultivation had actually reached the level of the ultimate emperor realm, who knew what Elvitao and the others would think? This time, I really have to hand it to you. Zhuowen, with your strength, you probably have a very good chance of entering the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings this time. LV Tao took a deep breath and revealed a scholarly smile. He looked at Zhuowen with a sincere gaze and smiled. Top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings? That's overestimating this little bastard. As soon as LV Tao said this, an untimely voice immediately rang out from behind. Following that, a black-clothed youth with a cold expression walked over with a group of people. Zhuowen turned his head and immediately saw this group of people. However, his gaze was not focused on the black-clothed young man in the lead. Instead, it was focused on the figure walking beside the young man. He saw that the person's right arm was empty. He only had one arm left. Feng Xiang? Looks like the punishment of only cutting off one arm was too light. The one-armed youth walking beside the black-clothed youth was Feng Xiang from the Feng clan, who had a conflict with Zhuowen at the appraisal hall. The identity of this group of people was naturally unknown. They were from the Feng clan, one of the 5 great clans. As soon as Zhuowen said this, Feng Xiang's expression froze. His eyes were filled with hatred. He would never forget what had happened at the appraisal hall that day. He, Feng Xiang, was a genius of the Feng clan. However, in front of everyone, he had lost an arm to an unknown youth. He had been utterly humiliated. During the Battle of the 9 Counties, Zhuowen's stunning performance had naturally been witnessed by him. He was also shocked by Zhuowen's terrifying strength. He had not lost unjustly back then. Even so, Feng Xiang's hatred for Zhuowen grew even more intense. The hatred of losing an arm was absolutely irreconcilable. Feng Xiang simply could not swallow this anger. Fortunately, he was very close to Feng Yong. After some exaggeration, Feng Yong had finally decided to stand up for him. This made him fearless. Zhuowen, don't be too arrogant. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want in the Imperial City? I'm afraid you're not qualified. Feng Xiang gathered his courage and said coldly, "Looks like cutting off one arm is still too little. Your other arm is also an eyesore. Why don't I cut it off for you as well? At least it will look more symmetrical." Zhuowen's gaze gradually turned cold. He stomped his foot and stared coldly at Feng Xiang. The latter could not help but tremble and involuntarily take 2 steps back. Zhuowen's words had actually caused Feng Xiang to retreat in fear. Feng Xiang's reaction immediately attracted many disdainful gazes from the crowd. Feng Xiang felt his cheeks burning as he felt these gazes. You dare to be so arrogant after injuring someone from the Feng clan. Chapter 713. Feng Xiang's Death. Be careful, this person is the #1 genius of the Feng family, Feng Yong. He is extremely strong and once challenged Huangfu Wuji. He lost to Huangfu Wuji in one move and is ranked 8th on the Green Emperor list. The black-clothed youth took a step forward. Behind Jun, Elvitao's face slightly changed as he quickly explained. Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian did not stop him. Feng Yong and Zhuowen were both juniors. As the older generation, they should not interfere. It would not be good if they were accused of bullying others. Moreover, Tian was not weak, so Lu Hantian was not worried about Jun. Feng family's Feng Yong? Nodding, Zhuowen's eyes focused on the black-clothed youth in front of him as a cold smile appeared on his face. Since you know my name, I'll give you a chance. Kneel down and apologize to Feng Xiang, and break one of your arms. Feng Yong indifferently glanced at Zhuowen. Although Zhuowen's performance in the Peach Blossom origin diagram was amazing, in Feng Yong's eyes, Zhuowen's strength was not even worth mentioning. After all, he was one of the top 10 existences on the Green Emperor list. He had his own pride, so how could he look down on Zhuowen? With Feng Yong standing up for him, Feng Xiang's courage also increased. He stared at Zhuowen and sneered, "And this is the result of provoking our Feng family. Now that big brother Feng Yong has spoken, kneel down and apologize to me." Do you think a piece of trash like you has the qualifications to talk nonsense in front of me? Zhuowen indifferently glanced at Feng Xiang. With a wave of his right hand, a bone spear appeared in his palm. With a step, Zhuowen rushed towards Feng Xiang like a hurricane, his speed reaching the extreme. How dare you attack me in front of me? Zhuowen's sudden attack instantly shocked Feng Xiang, causing Feng Xiang to involuntarily retreat a few steps. Feng Yong even roared furiously and blocked in front of Feng Xiang. His right hand suddenly punched out, and terrifying origin energy converged into countless strong winds that were extremely formidable. My target is not you. Just as he was about to reach Feng Yong, the corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up slightly. He formed a seal with both hands and 3 pairs of lightning wings instantly sprouted from his back. His speed instantly soared to the extreme. It was as if he had teleported and dodged Feng Yong's attack. Not good. Before Feng Yong could even react, Yuan had already disappeared from his sight. When he finally reacted, his expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly looked behind him. In an instant, Yuan arrived in front of Feng Xiang. His expression was extremely cold as he stretched out his right hand to grab Feng Xiang. At this moment, Feng Xiang's face was pale. Seeing Zhuowen's hand coming towards him, he gritted his teeth and took out a defensive spiritual treasure from his spiritual ring. It's useless. Zhuowen shook his head. His right hand smashed onto the defensive spiritual treasure. The golden light exploded, and the defensive spiritual treasure was directly shattered into countless pieces. Feng Xiang was directly lifted up by Zhuowen in his hand as if he was lifting up a little chick. With a stomp of his foot, Zhuowen carried Feng Xiang and retreated dozens of steps. The moment he retreated, the ground where he was originally standing collapsed, and a huge crater was formed. Feng Yong stood in the crater with a gloomy face. Zhuowen, let go of Feng Xiang. The veins on Feng Yong's forehead bulged as he fiercely said. Right in front of his eyes, his men had actually been caught by Zhuowen in such a blatant manner. Feng Yong had lost all his face. At this moment, his heart was filled with monstrous rage. Zhuowen completely ignored Feng Yong. With a flick of the long spear in his right hand, Feng Xiang's remaining left arm was cut off at the shoulder. Blood spurted out wildly. You still want me to kneel down and apologize? Zhuowen stared coldly at Feng Xiang. Every word he said was as cold as the dead of winter. No, I don't dare anymore. Zhuowen, let me go. I will kneel down and apologize to you. Please don't kill me. Feng Xiang's forehead was covered in cold sweat. His face was deathly pale, and his eyes were filled with fear and regret. He clearly knew that Zhuowen was a maleficent star. Why did he still provoke him today? If he didn't find Zhuowen, he wouldn't have ended up like this. He regretted it. Zhuowen, I told you to let go of Feng Xiang. Didn't you hear me? Seeing Feng Xiang's arm cut off, Feng Yong's face was extremely gloomy. This Zhuowen in front of him was too arrogant. He actually dared to cripple a member of the Feng family in front of him. The surrounding people also noticed the commotion, especially when Zhuowen cut off Feng Xiang's left arm in front of Feng Yong. Many people had strange looks in their eyes. You want to attack me now? Feng Xiang is in my hands. If you attack, Feng Xiang's life will be in danger. Holding Feng Xiang in his left hand, Zhuowen faced Feng Yong with a mocking smile. Big brother Feng Yong, don't attack. This one will really kill me. Feng Xiang rolled his dead fish eyes and kept struggling in Zhuowen's hands. He knew that if Zhuowen dared to cut off his arm, then he would really dare to kill him. If Feng Yong really acted rashly, then he would definitely die. You know that we are from the Feng family and you still dare to attack us. I don't believe that you dare to kill Feng Xiang. Feng Yong coldly snorted. The Feng family was one of the 5 great families. In the entire imperial city, it was considered an extremely powerful force. He didn't believe that Zhuowen would kill Feng Xiang. After all, if he killed Feng Xiang, he would create a deadly feud. The surrounding people also looked at Zhuowen with great interest. They also didn't believe that Zhuowen would really kill Feng Xiang. After all, creating a feud and creating a deadly feud were 2 different concepts. If he didn't kill Feng Xiang, the conflict between Zhuowen and the Feng family could still be resolved. However, if he killed Feng Xiang, it would create a feud that was basically impossible to resolve. Feng Yong was very confident that Zhuowen would definitely not dare to kill Feng Xiang. Therefore, he didn't have any scruples. He directly rushed toward Zhuowen with a step. It seems that my words are nothing to you. Shaking his head, Zhuowen suddenly clenched his right hand. The crisp sound of bones cracking could be heard. Then, the originally lively Feng Xiang's neck tilted to one side. He had actually stopped breathing. Jun actually killed Feng Xiang. The surroundings were silent, so silent that it was frightening. Everyone's gaze was focused on the completely dead Feng Xiang in Zhuowen's hand. No one said a word. Feng Yong was also stunned. He also didn't expect that Zhuowen would really kill Feng Xiang. Moreover, it was right in front of him. After a moment of daze, Feng Yong's heart was replaced by a towering rage. You actually dared to kill him? Feng Yong suppressed his anger and said, "The one who killed him wasn't me, but you. Didn't I just say that if you dared to move, Feng Xiang would be dead for sure? You didn't listen. Instead, you wanted to attack me. You forced me to kill him." Zhuowen's eyes gradually turned cold as he casually threw Feng Xiang's corpse at Feng Yong's feet. No one can live after killing a member of the Feng family. You must die. As he spoke, Feng Yong suddenly rushed toward Jun. A terrifying aura surged out of his body like a wild beast, crushing toward Jun. Peak of the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm? Jun narrowed his eyes. The moment Feng Yong's aura surged out, Jun could feel that Feng Yong's aura was no weaker than Huangfu Wuji's. He was also at the peak of the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm. However, I don't necessarily fear you. Jun licked his lips and stepped forwards. A similarly terrifying aura surged out. Then, spear intent erupted, forming a domain of spear shadows around his body. At this moment, Feng Xiang's right palm was covered with a red light as it smashed toward Zhuowen's face. Zhuowen stepped forwards and the bone spear in his right hand flicked upwards. The sharp spear tip instantly collided with Feng Xiang's right palm. Ding! The crisp sound of metal striking metal rang out. The two figures froze for a moment before a terrifying energy surged out from between them. The ground beneath their feet completely cracked open. Dang dang dang! The two of them retreated at the same time. Jun retreated 10 steps while Feng Yong retreated 5. It was clear that Feng Yong had the upper hand in the exchange just now. After all, Jun had just broken through to the early stage of the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm, while Feng Yong was already at the peak of the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm. The difference in strength between the two was quite large. It was already inconceivable that Jun could force Feng Yong to retreat. Early stage of the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm? He has even grasped the power of concept? Feng Yong's eyes revealed a trace of shock as he steadied himself. This Jun in front of him was also an ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm martial artist. What was even more unbelievable was that this boy had comprehended the power of concept that martial artists yearned for even in their dreams. Early stage of the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm? In Muqing County's team, Luo Xing, LV Tao, and the others were also shocked. Luo Xing had just said that Zhuowen's strength was at the peak of the ultimate six-wheel emperor realm. How had it become the early stage of the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm? In the heart of darkness, Jun has broken through again. After calming down, Luo Xing finally found the most reasonable explanation. However, although this explanation was the most reasonable, Luo Xing still felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. It had only been 3 months since they had entered the heart of darkness. In such a short period of time, Zhuowen's cultivation had actually broken through. This speed was a little too fast. On the other side of the square, Huangfu Wuji and Grant Lily, who had been watching, both frowned at the same time. Zhuowen's display of strength at the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm had also surprised the two of them. No noise or fighting is allowed in front of the throne room. The two of you immediately follow the team and leave this place. A loud shout suddenly came from the front. The commander of the Imperial Guards, Li Jin, was dressed in silver armor. He rode a large horse and quickly arrived between Zhuowen and Feng Yong. His face was filled with indifference. Feng Yong glanced at Li Jin with some fear, then looked coldly at Zhuowen again. He said, "Count yourself lucky this time. When the ranking battle begins, your luck will not be as good as it is now. You should be the one with good luck. Otherwise, if you, Feng Yong, lose to me, your reputation will definitely be ruined. At that time, you won't be able to lift your head up anymore." Zhuowen retorted sarcastically. "Nonsense. You're full of nonsense. Although you're also an ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm practitioner, you're only at the early stage. So what if you've grasped spear intent? The difference between your cultivation and mine is too great. When the ranking battle begins, I want you to kneel and beg for mercy. Feng Yong fiercely threw down these harsh words, then left the square with the members of the Feng family. Since the commander of the Imperial Guards, Li Jin, had appeared, the two naturally could not fight. Chapter 714. Forbidden Area. As soon as Li Jin's words left his mouth, the people who were watching the show all dispersed and left the imperial city. When the Grand Family's group passed by Zhuan, they suddenly stopped. At the front of the group, Grand Lily stared at Zhuan with a cold expression and opened her red lips. Zhuan, you were lucky in the Peach Blossom origin diagram to escape with your life. However, your fate will not change after the ranking battle begins. After saying this, Grand Lily followed Grand Haohai and left the imperial city, no longer paying attention to Zhuan. Or rather, Zhuan was not worth her attention. Although Zhuowen's cultivation had broken through to the ultimate seven-wheel emperor stage, in Grand Lily's eyes, it was still not enough. Zhuan narrowed his eyes as he watched Grand Lily leave. His eyes were filled with coldness. This woman was arrogant and looked down on everyone. Zhuan hated such an attitude. In addition, Grand Lily had chased after him in the heart of darkness, causing him to be forced to fall off a cliff and narrowly escape death. Zhuan would not let this matter rest so easily. Zhuan, looks like you have quite a number of enemies. You have offended Feng Yong and Grand Lily. A rather mocking voice suddenly came from the front. Zhuan turned his head and saw Guosheng, who was carrying a large saber on his back, walking towards him with a mischievous smile. Guosheng was beside an old man who also carried a large saber on his back. This old man's eyes flashed like an eagle, extremely frightening. He was the extremely famous Heavenly Sovereign Tyrannical Blade in the Imperial City. This Heavenly Sovereign Tyrannical Blade was extremely strong. His cultivation was slightly weaker than Lu Hantian's, but he was also a terrifying expert who had comprehended the concept of perfection. If Heavenly Sovereign Tyrannical Blade and Lu Hantian really fought, it would be hard to predict who would win. At the very least, Lu Hantian would not be able to do anything to Heavenly Sovereign Tyrannical Blade. Guosheng, looking at the grinning youth with a large saber walking over, Zhuowen's lips curled into a smile. This Guosheng was a martial arts maniac. When he first saw that Zhuan had grasped spear intent, he had insisted on exchanging pointers with him. It was during that spar that Zhuowen's spear intent had been successfully perfected. It had directly advanced from elementary spear intent to advanced spear intent. Speaking of which, Zhuan still had to thank this Guosheng. You're improving really fast, kid. It's only been a while since we last met, and you've already advanced to the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm. You're really a freak. Looking at Zhuan curiously, Guosheng couldn't help but shake his head and mutter to himself as if he was looking at a rare antique. Even if I advance to the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm, I'm still no match for you. Zhuan said casually as he shrugged. Guosheng had a straightforward personality and was rather one-track minded. Compared to those scheming people, Zhuan had a very good impression of Guosheng. Of course, you and I have both grasped the power of concepts, but your cultivation is lower than mine, so it's normal for you to not be my match. To tell you the truth, this time I came here for the top 5 rankings of the Blue Emperor Proclamation. Guosheng wasn't modest at all. He casually patted Zhuowen's shoulder and laughed. However, your strength is also quite good. You should be able to deal with that Feng Yong. Seeing Guosheng's rascally appearance, Zhuan helplessly shook his head. However, Guosheng was truly strong. Although his cultivation was the same as Huangfu Wuji and Feng Yong's, the saber intent that he had grasped far surpassed theirs. There was a high chance that he could enter the top 5 rankings. Brother Lu, your Muqing County's Zhuowen is quite a good seedling. He'll definitely enter the top 10 rankings of the Blue Emperor Proclamation. Ha! Empyrean Tyrant Blade laughed as he stroked his beard. Of course, this little boy Zhuowen is my brother. If my brother isn't fierce, then who is fierce? Lu Hantian wasn't modest at all as he accepted Empyrean Tyrant Blade's praise. His rascally appearance was even better than Guosheng's. Empyrean Tyrant Blade didn't know how to respond and could only awkwardly smile. Dun. I wish you good luck. I look forward to your performance in the ranking tournament 3 months from now. I'll be leaving first. After exchanging some pleasantries, Guisheng cupped his hands toward Zhuowen and the others, and then followed Empyrean Tyrant Blade out of the Imperial City. Let's go! At this moment, besides the geniuses of the Imperial family, everyone else had already left. Lu Hantian and the others didn't stay any longer, and also left the Imperial City. On the steps in front of the throne room, Huangfu Wuji and Huangfu Wuji stood side by side, their eyes fixed on the departing Muqin County group. That's Zhuowen? His strength is quite good, and it's said that this boy has grasped spear intent. Second brother, are you confident that you can deal with him? Huangfu Wudao held his hands behind his back, his face filled with an unfathomable expression. When one's strength reached Huangfu Wudao's level, he basically didn't place other geniuses in his eyes. Although Zhuowen's strength was good, Huangfu Wudao simply didn't place him in his eyes. If it weren't for the grudges between Huangfu Wuji and Zhuowen, Huangfu Wudao wouldn't even pay attention to such a minor character like Zhuowen. Huangfu Wudao was very confident, even to the point of conceit. He didn't even place the second-ranked Murongzhan in his eyes. The only thing he cared about was entering the Divine Academy. He wanted to become even stronger, because only the strong could control everything. He liked the feeling of being able to turn his hand and change the rain. Humph! He's nothing but a clown. Once the ranking tournament begins, I will definitely trample this boy under my feet. Huangfu Wuji's eyes narrowed as he coldly said, "This Zhuowen is just a minor character. Second brother, what you need to worry about now is how to enter the top 5 of the Divine Academy. There are many powerhouses this time, so your chances of entering the top 5 are a bit slim. Grand Lily has already broken through to the 8-wheel Emperor realm. Her chances of entering the top 5 are very high. As for that Guisheng, he also has a chance of entering the top 5. As for you, your chances aren't too high." As Huangfu Wudao spoke to hear, he deliberately paused and turned to stare at Huangfu Wuji. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he said, "Second brother, Big Brother has placed great hopes on you. If you can't even enter the top 5, then don't blame Big Brother for being impolite." Feeling the killing intent in Huangfu Wudao's eyes, Huangfu Wuji's pupils shrank and his body couldn't help but tremble. He knew that if he couldn't enter the top 5, then Huangfu Wudao would most likely kill him. Huangfu Wudao's status within the royal family was extremely high. Although Huangfu Wuji was the second prince, the difference in status between him and Huangfu Wudao was enormous. Even if Huangfu Wudao killed him, the Azure Emperor wouldn't blame him. This was because in the Azure Emperor's heart, not even 10 of him could compare to Huangfu Wudao. After all, Huangfu Wudao was the genius with the highest hopes of entering Excellent Divine Academy. Once Huangfu Wudao entered Excellent Divine Academy, with his talent and the teaching strength of Excellent Divine Academy, Huangfu Wudao would at least reach the Empyrean realm. He might even become the second emperor powerhouse of the Azure Profound Empire. "I ask Big Brother to show me the way." Huangfu Wuji knelt down on one knee, no longer holding back. Although he was confident in his own strength, entering the top 5 was still a bit difficult. Thus, he could only ask Huangfu Wudao for help. "Don't you still have 3 months? Use this time to rush into the forbidden area. If you can smoothly pass through the forbidden area, then you can definitely break through to the 8-wheel Emperor realm within 3 months." Huangfu Wudao lightly said. "Forbidden area?" Huangfu Wuji's complexion changed. The forbidden area of the royal family was filled with countless dangers. There were very few martial artists that could survive. Even Huangfu Wuji didn't have much confidence that he could pass through the forbidden area. "It looks like you don't dare? If you want to enter the top 5 this time, then that is simply wishful thinking." Huangfu Wudao licked his lips and cruelly smiled. Huangfu Wuji's eyes flashed. He clenched his teeth and said, "I will enter. This time, I must break through to the 8-wheel Emperor realm." As he spoke, Huangfu Wuji directly stepped into the throne room behind him and quickly disappeared. Excellent Divine Academy. Huangfu Wudao didn't move. He only quietly stood on the steps. He slightly raised his head and muttered to himself, a sharp light flashing in his eyes. At night, the sky was filled with stars. The imperial capital was brightly lit. Within a pavilion of the intoxicating spring pavilion, Nguyen sat cross-legged on a prayer mat. He flicked his finger and a ball of light several feet wide appeared in his hand. This was the nascent soul that he had obtained from the underground river. When Zhuan had absorbed half of the nascent soul's energy, he had smoothly broken through to the seven-wheel emperor realm. Thus, the nascent soul hadn't been completely used up. The remaining half of the nascent soul is extremely rich in energy for you. If you want to completely absorb it, it should take about a month. At that time, your cultivation will at least reach the late stage of the seven-wheel emperor realm. Just as Zhuan was staring at the nascent soul in his hand, Xiao Hei's voice rang out in Zhuan's mind. If I can reach the late stage of the seven-wheel emperor realm and have a higher level of spear intent, then Feng Yong won't be my opponent. Zhuan nodded and said, "Could quickly put away the nascent soul. Someone is rushing towards your room. This person's strength is terrifying." Suddenly, Xiao Hei's voice in his mind became urgent and even a little fearful. Zhuan's eyes trembled. To be able to make Xiao Hei so flustered, this person must be terrifying. He quickly put away the nascent soul and unconsciously took out the tyrannical dragon-scale bone spear. He cautiously looked around. "Who is it? Don't be sneaky, come out quickly," Zhuan shouted in a probing manner. Sure enough, as soon as he said this, a surprised voice came from the roof of the room. "Kid, your five senses are quite sharp. You can actually detect my presence?" Zhuan was shocked and quickly raised his head. Suddenly, he saw a figure on the beam of the roof. This person was somewhat stooped and wore a bronze mask. He looked extremely strange. "It's you?" Zhuan recognized this person. He was the guard of the Burning Heaven Sect's Saintess, Mu Shui. His strength was unfathomable, and Zhuan couldn't see through him. However, Zhuan was a little puzzled. Why did this person come looking for him? He didn't seem to know Mu Shui. "This old man is just giving you something on behalf of my young miss," Qiu Lao said indifferently. With a flick of his finger, a ray of light shot out from his fingertip and drilled into Zhuan's palm. Zhuan looked at it and saw a seven-colored crystal quietly lying in his palm. It emitted a strange seven-colored light. Whoosh! After handing over the seven-colored crystal, Elder Qiu glanced at Zhuan indifferently before disappearing from the room. Chapter 7:15. The Chase. This is a Rainbow Soul Essence Stone? Just as Zhuan was wondering about the Rainbow Soul Essence Stone in his hand, Xiao Hei's shocked voice rang out in his mind. A wisp of black light shot out from between Zhuan's eyebrows and turned into Xiao Hei. Xiao Hei stood on Zhuan's palm and carefully examined the Rainbow Soul Essence Stone in his palm. Zhuan did not disturb Xiao Hei. From Xiao Hei's behavior, Xiao Hei probably had some understanding of the Rainbow Soul Essence Stone. It is indeed a Rainbow Soul Essence Stone. Xiao Hei sat on Zhuan's shoulder. Her dark little face was filled with surprise. "Xiao Hei, what is a Rainbow Soul Essence Stone?" Zhuan asked curiously. "You really picked up a treasure this time. This Rainbow Soul Essence Stone is good stuff. It is said that the Rainbow Soul Essence Stone is a strange stone that fell from the sky when the Heavenly Armor Continent was created. This kind of stone was not very rare in the ancient times. However, as time passed, the number of seven-colored Essence Soul Stones became fewer and fewer. Even in the ancient times, the seven-colored Essence Soul Stone almost never appeared." After hearing Xiao Hei's words, one also knew that the Rainbow Soul Essence Stone was extremely rare. However, what puzzled him was the specific function of the Rainbow Soul Essence Stone. Perhaps it was because she saw the puzzled look on Zhuan's face. Xiao Hei chuckled and said, "The Rainbow Soul Essence Stone contains extremely rich essence energy. This essence energy is extremely beneficial to the spirit of a cultivator. To martial practitioners, the seven-colored Soul Essence Stone only strengthens their spirit, energy, and soul. But to Arcana Masters, the essence of the seven-colored Soul Essence Stone can allow your mental power to break through a major level in a short amount of time. It can be said that it is a treasure in the eyes of an arcanist." At this point, Xiao Hei's eyes revealed a trace of blazing light. break through a large level? This can't be true, right? Hearing this, Zhuowen's pupils shrank and his face was filled with shock. Xiaohei was talking about a large level, not a small level. In other words, Zhuowen's mind power had already reached the level of 4th grade great completion. However, if he absorbed all the essence energy of the Rainbow Soul Essence Stone, his mind power could directly break through to 5th grade completion. This was directly jumping a large level. No wonder Blackie said that the 7-colored Soul Stone was a precious treasure to Arcana Masters. It could actually help Arcana Masters break through a major realm. The cultivation of the mind was far more difficult than the cultivation of martial arts. Every high-grade Arcana Master was over 50 years old, and some of them even had white hair. Young high-grade Arcana Masters were very rare. Zhuowen's mind power had reached the complete 4th grade at his age, which was already extremely heaven-defying. If he relied on the 7-colored Soul Essence Stone to directly break through to the complete 5th grade, it would definitely shock countless people. This Rainbow Soul Essence Stone is actually so precious? After listening to Xiaohei's introduction, Nguyen also realized how precious this Rainbow Soul Essence Stone was. The Saintess of the Burning Heaven sect actually gave such a precious treasure to him. This made Zhuowen somewhat puzzled. Boy, it seems that the Saintess of the Burning Heaven sect is interested in you. Otherwise, she would not give this Rainbow Soul Essence Stone to you, hee. At this moment, Xiaohei stared at Zhuowen with a mischievous look. Zhuowen could not wait to give this guy a slap. The Saintess of the Burning Heaven sect is called Mu Shui, also surnamed Mu. Mu Qinshue's surname is also Mu. The two must have some relationship. Perhaps Mu Qinshu asked Mu Shui to give this to me? At this point, Zhuowen's heart moved, and he became more and more certain that this Mu Shui and Mu Qinshu had an unusual relationship. What you said makes sense. I'm afraid that Mu Shui and Mu Qinshue's relationship is not simple. Maybe this Mu Shui is Mu Qinshue's alias, or maybe this Mu Shui is Mu Qinshu. Xiaohei stroked his chin and said casually. Zhuowen's pupils shrank, and his fists involuntarily clenched. It was as if 1,000 waves had been stirred up in his heart, and he was extremely uneasy. And in Zhuowen's mind, the gaze that Mu Shui looked at him with appeared many times. That gaze was familiar, and that Mu Shui had a different attitude towards him time and time again. Mu Shui is Mu Qinshu. Hurriedly putting away the Rainbow Soul Essence Stone, Nguyen suddenly pushed open the door and stepped out of the room. Boy, where are you going? Seeing Zhuowen's anxious appearance, Xiaohei asked in surprise. To find Big Brother Han Tian. Why are you looking for that old beggar? Let him bring me to the Imperial City. I want to see Mu Shui. Zhuowen answered Zhuowen's question as he ran. Mu Shui was in the Imperial City, and the Imperial City was heavily guarded. It was impossible to enter the Imperial City without permission. Zhuowen knew that only Lu Hantian had the qualifications to enter the Imperial City. Not only was Lu Hantian powerful, but the Azure Emperor also valued Lu Hantian greatly. If Lu Hantian brought him into the Imperial City, the Azure Emperor would not blame him. In the Imperial City, in a rather luxurious pavilion, a graceful woman wearing a light veil stood quietly in front of the window. Her beautiful eyes were like the starry sky as she quietly looked at the starry night sky. A figure cut through the void and instantly landed behind the veiled woman. This person wore a bronze mask and respectfully knelt on one knee behind the woman. Elder Chiu. Has the 7-colored Soul Essence Stone been delivered? Mu Shui's beautiful eyes flashed as she softly asked. It has been delivered to Zhuowen. But miss, that 7-colored Soul Essence Stone is a treasure that can suppress the cold poison in your body. If you give it to Zhuowen like this, what will happen to you? Elder Chiu frowned and said with a trembling voice. With my current cultivation, I can suppress the cold poison for half a year. If I can find the heavenly fire within half a year, I can cure the cold poison. There's no hurry. Mu Shui lightly said. Miss, it's not like you don't know how rare the heavenly fire is. If it was in ancient times, it might be possible to find the heavenly fire, but the chances are too slim now. If you can't cure the cold poison, you'll die. Elder Chiu's body began to tremble. He knew how terrifying the cold poison in Mu Shue's body was. If she wasn't careful, it could be fatal. The 7-colored soul essence stone was personally given to Mu Shue by the sect master of the Burning Heaven sect to suppress the cold poison in her body. With the 7-colored soul essence stone's suppressive effect, the cold poison would only act up after 10 years. But now, Mu Shue actually directly gave the 7-colored soul essence stone to Zhu. Without a doubt, she was handing her life over to Zhu. Within half a year, the cold poison would definitely act up. At that time, everything would be too late. Is it worth it for this Zhuowen? Looking at Mu Shue's indifferent eyes, Elder Qiu's heart seemed to be dripping blood. The miss in front of him, who had always been as cold as ice, was actually making such a sacrifice for a man today. Elder Qiu's heart was indescribably complicated. It's worth it. The 7-colored soul essence stone can only suppress the cold poison for 10 years. Elder Qiu, didn't you say it before? Now that the heavenly fire is almost nowhere to be found, do you think you can find it in 10 years? In the end, my ending will be the same. I'm just bringing this ending forward. Mu Shue's voice was still calm, so calm that it was frightening. Elder Qiu was silent. He did not know what to say now. He could only look sadly at the beautiful lady in front of him. With the 7-colored soul essence stone, Zhuowen's mental strength can be raised to rank 5 great perfection. In addition to the infinite sword formation on him, Yuan will have no problem entering the top 5 of the Green Emperor board. At this point, Mu Shue stretched out her slender hand. On her flawless wrist was a string of bells. As she waved her hand gently, the bells let out a crisp sound. A fiery red shadow suddenly flew over from the sky and stopped at the window. It was actually a vermilion bird. Elder Qiu, we should also leave, Mu Shue said plainly. Elder Qiu shook his head helplessly and could only step onto the vermilion bird, following which, a sharp bird cry sounded. The vermilion bird was like a small sun. It suddenly rose up, intending to leave the imperial city. In the throne room, the Green Emperor, who was sitting alone in the middle of the room, raised his head as if he sensed something. His deep gaze penetrated the roof as if he could see the scene outside. Mu Shue and Qiu Yan are leaving? The Green Emperor muttered to himself. Until now, he still did not know why Mu Shue and Qiu Yan had come to the Qingxian Empire. In his opinion, their appearance was somewhat strange. At this moment, outside the imperial city, 2 figures were rushing towards the imperial city. One of them was young and had a delicate face. He carried a strange green coffin on his back. The other person was dirty. His clothes were ragged and his hair was greasy. He looked like an old beggar. The 2 of them were naturally Zhuowen and Lu Hantian, who were rushing towards the imperial city. Zhuowen found Lu Hantian and dragged Lu Hantian to the imperial city without any explanation. This made Lu Hantian a little confused. A high-pitched bird cry suddenly sounded from the imperial city. Following which, the vermilion bird, which was like a small sun, suddenly spread its wings and flew out of the imperial city. Its speed was extremely fast. Vermilion bird? Big brother Hunton, quickly bring me to catch up to that vermilion bird. Looking at the vermilion bird that was gradually flying away, Yuan was rather anxious. That's the mount of the Saintess of the Burning Heaven sect. Kid, are you planning to chase after the Saintess of the Burning Heaven sect? Your ambition is really great. Lu Hantian also recognized the identity of the vermilion bird. He could not help but give Zhuowen a thumbs up and smile wretchedly. Zhuowen did not care about Lu Hantian's thoughts at this moment. He hurriedly said, Big brother Hunton, quickly bring me to catch up. Otherwise, it will really be too late. Since it's a girl that brother has taken a fancy to, I will help you no matter what. Kid, you have to suffer first. Lu Hantian did not waste any time. He directly lifted Zhuowen by the back of his collar and stepped on the ground. His speed soared to the extreme, and in an instant, he swept towards the vermilion bird that was gradually flying away. Towards the way Lu Hantian carried him, Yuan could not help but madly roll his eyes. This posture was too sullen. However, Yuan also knew that if he did not want to hinder Lu Hantian's journey, this was the best way. Therefore, he could only put down the discomfort in his heart and let Lu Hantian carry him. Chapter 716. The murderous Chiu Lao the vermilion bird was extremely fast as it soared into the sky. It was like a shooting star in the night sky, dazzling and shining. Miss Zhuan is coming. Chiu Lao stood quietly beside Mu Shui on the vermilion bird. He glanced behind him with hesitation in his eyes. The seven-colored soul essence stone was too important to Mu Shui. Now that it was in Zhuan's hands, Chiu Lao wanted to snatch it for Mu Shui. However, he knew that since Mu Shui had given it to Zhuan, he would not accept it easily. It would be a waste of effort to snatch it from him. Mu Shui's body trembled slightly. She slowly turned her head and saw the two figures standing on the blood spear dozens of miles away, especially the young man in Lu Hantian's hands. She could not calm herself down. Miss, the heavenly armor continent is so big. We might have a chance to find the heavenly fire. The seven-colored soul essence stone is too important to you now. Why don't we tell Zhuan about this and get the seven-colored soul essence stone back? Chiu Lao said unwillingly. Chiu Lao, speed up and shake them off. Mu Shui turned around. His eyes regained their calmness as he quietly stared at Elder Chiu. Miss, I am begging you. Don't treat your life as a joke. Is Zhuan really that important? Is he worth you risking your life for him to succeed? Chiu Lao roared sadly. You don't understand. You have to listen to me, Mu Shui said coldly. Chiu Lao clenched his fists and stomped his feet. The vermilion bird below him let out a sharp cry and slowed down. Chiu Lao? Mu Shui said angrily. Miss, I won't leave you in the lurch. I can't just watch you die like this. Zhuan isn't worthy of you doing this. I will get the seven-colored soul essence stone for you. After Chiu Lao finished speaking, he instantly used his movement skill and disappeared from the vermilion bird. He went straight for Lu Hantian and Zhuan. Mu Shui's face changed. She stomped her feet and a green lotus bloomed under her feet. She chased after Chiu Lao with Mu on her back. She knew how terrifying Elder Chiu was. He was a true sovereign realm expert. Zhuan was like an ant in Elder Chiu's hands. He could destroy him with a flip of his hand. She did not want anything to happen to Zhuan. Behind them, Lu Hantian stepped on his blood spear and carried Zhuan in his right hand. As a peak heavenly venerate, Lu Hantian's speed had exceeded Zhuan's expectations. Even if Zhuan used the 6 wings of wind and lightning, he would not be able to match up to 1,000th of Lu Hantian's speed. Even so, the distance between them and the vermilion bird was not shrinking. Instead, it was expanding. The vermilion bird's speed was even faster than Lu Hantian's. It was indeed a primordial beast with the bloodline of the divine beast phoenix. The vermilion bird is too fast. With my speed, I will be completely shaken off in half an hour. Lu Hantian frowned. The vermilion bird's speed had exceeded his expectations. It had reached such a terrifying level. Lu Hantian had used his full strength, but the vermilion bird had still widened the distance between them. Is there no other way? Zhuan gritted his teeth. He was unwilling to give up. There is no other way. The vermilion bird is too fast. Moreover, I do not have an advantage in speed. It will be very difficult to catch up to the vermilion bird. Lu Hantian shook his head and said helplessly. Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes revealed a trace of disappointment. He also didn't expect that with Lu Hantian's cultivation, he wouldn't be able to catch up to the vermilion bird. It seemed that he wouldn't be able to ask about Mu Chen Shui now. The vermilion bird in front has slowed down. Lu Hantian suddenly exclaimed. His eyes lit up. Zhuan looked over and was pleasantly surprised to find that the vermilion bird in front was indeed as Lu Hantian had said. Its speed had slowed down. Quickly catch up, Zhuan said anxiously. Someone is coming towards us. This person is very strong. At this moment, Lu Hantian's face was extremely solemn. He was much stronger than Zhuan. At a glance, he saw that the man with the bronze mask who was originally standing quietly on the back of the vermilion bird was rushing towards them in an aggressive manner. Swoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air suddenly rang out, and the figure instantly arrived within 10 miles of the two. Zhuowen finally noticed the figure that was rushing over, but when his gaze converged on the figure, he could not help but reveal a stunned expression. The person in front of him was a little stooped. He was wearing a bronze mask and had a vast aura. It was the mysterious person who had given him the 7-colored soul essence stone. Hand over the 7-colored soul essence stone and die. At this moment, Elder Chio's eyes were filled with rage. It was all because of this brat in front of him. Miss was willing to give up her life for this brat. This brat was unforgivable. As long as this Juan dies, Miss will slowly forget about this brat. It doesn't matter even if Miss resents me. The killing intent in Elder Chio's eyes intensified. The only way for Miss to accept the 7-colored soul essence stone again was to completely eliminate Jun. Zhuowen's face went grim when he saw Elder Chio, who flashed over with surging killing intent. He'd never imagined that this mysterious person before him that he'd never met would actually suddenly turn around and kill him, and it caused Zhuowen to feel slightly bewildered. "You're not qualified to kill my brother." Lu Hantian snorted coldly. He let go of Zhuowen and stood in front of Zhuowen. He stomped his foot, and the blood spear under his feet became extremely thick. It broke through the void and shot towards Elder Chio. "You're only a heavenly venerate. You're not my opponent. Get lost if you don't want to die." Elder Chio snorted coldly. He extended his right claw, and a terrifying power poured out. The surrounding space collapsed layer by layer, and the huge blood spear directly collapsed, turning into a rain of blood. An Emperor Realm powerhouse? Looking at the blood spear that was easily broken, Lu Hantian took Zhuowen and retreated. His pupils shrank as he stared at old Chio and exclaimed, "Since you know, then get the hell out of here. I won't kill you, but you must hand over the brat behind you to me." Elder Chio snorted coldly. "You want Zhuowen?" Lu Hantian narrowed his eyes and continued coldly, "So what if you're an Emperor Realm powerhouse? You want to snatch Zhuowen from me? No way. You want to do this the hard way. Get lost." Elder Chio didn't waste any more time talking nonsense. His withered, twig-like right hand reached out again. Suddenly, the surrounding space for dozens of miles shattered like broken glass. From the shattered space, countless similar claws reached out and swept towards Lu Hantian. Lu Hantian's expression changed slightly. He stomped his foot again, and countless blood chi surged out from his body, forming countless blood spear shadows around him. With him as the center, it turned into a huge blood spear domain. Boom, 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 boom. Countless claws arrived in an instant and collided with Lu Hantian's blood spear domain. Immediately, earth-shattering explosions resounded. "A candle dares to compete with the sun and moon?" Elder Chio snorted coldly and clenched his right claw. Immediately, a crisp cracking sound rang out. Then, Lu Hantian, who was in the blood spear domain, was shocked to find that the countless spear shadows around him collapsed like tofu. "Puchi!" Lu Hantian spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was filled with shock and anger as he flew backwards. Although Lu Hantian was at the peak of the heavenly venerate realm and had grasped the greater perfection spear intent, Elder Chio was a genuine Emperor Realm expert. The difference in strength between the two was too great. Lu Hantian suddenly shouted the moment he was injured. His voice was like thunder. Zhuowen, who was originally shocked by the battle between Lu Hantian and Elder Chio, couldn't help but tremble when he heard Lu Hantian's shout. Then, he clearly sensed a sinister gaze on him. An unprecedented sense of danger exploded in Zhuowen's heart. Especially when he saw Elder Chio's cold gaze, Yuan couldn't summon the slightest bit of resistance. "This person is too terrifying. I have to run, or I'll definitely die." Without hesitation, Zhuowen unfurled 3 pairs of lightning wings and summoned the infinitesimal sword formation at the same time. He even executed the nirvana of the great sun. After putting up a strong defense, he stomped his foot and disappeared from the spot. "With your strength, do you really think you can escape from my palm?" Elder Chio sneered. He blended into the silent night like a shadow and instantly disappeared. At the same time, Mu Shui, who was standing on a green lotus, also arrived. She happened to see Zhuowen fleeing miserably and Elder Chio chasing after him. Her pretty face was filled with worry. Elder Chiu, this fellow. Gritting her teeth, Mu Shui stomped her foot and quickly followed Zhuan and Elder Chiu. She definitely couldn't let Elder Chiu kill Zhuan. Damn it. Damn it. Why did this fellow suddenly go crazy and want to kill me? I clearly didn't offend him. At this moment, Zhuan was running for his life in a panic. However, his heart was burning with anger. He didn't know what was wrong with Elder Chiu. He actually wanted to take back the 7-color soul essence stone and wanted his life. This old man is too powerful. He's a terrifying second heaven emperor. No matter how you run, you won't be able to escape from him. Xiao Hei's voice slowly rang in his mind. Xiao Hei, what should we do now? Yun was in a mess and could only ask Xiao Hei for help. I have no choice. This old man's strength is too terrifying. The gap between you two is too big. I really have no way to make him let you go. Xiao Hei replied helplessly. Kid, quickly dodge. That old man's attack is behind you. Suddenly, Xiao Hei exclaimed. Zhuan was instantly alerted. He quickly twisted his waist and dodged to the side. Swoosh! A terrifying attack swept past Zhuan's side. It tore through the air and shattered the surrounding space into countless black holes. A strong wind spread out and coincidentally hit Zhuan's chest. Zhuan spat out a mouthful of blood and fell down powerlessly like a butterfly. Boom! He crashed onto the ground and a huge crater was formed. Zhuan was in the crater and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. His aura was extremely weak. Chapter 717. Dark Cold Poison. It's over. Zhuan's face turned pale as he looked at the terrifying palm print falling from the sky. Despair filled his eyes. This was an attack from an Emperor Realm expert. Although it wasn't Elder Chiu's full-strength attack, it wasn't something that Zhuan could handle. The terrifying aura poured down and forced Zhuan to kneel on one knee. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth and he looked miserable. Zhuan found it hard to withstand the aura alone. It was too terrifying. Swoosh! Just as the palm print was about to hit the ground, a green light shot out from behind and landed in front of Zhuan. The green light shot out and formed a green lotus that was a few hundred feet tall. Boom! The palm print arrived in an instant and blasted on the green lotus. Instantly, a terrifying explosion resounded. Ring-shaped waves of air rose up in the void, layer by layer. The green lotus was extremely tough and it managed to withstand the attack of the terrifying palm print. At the same time, a beautiful figure stood in front of Zhuan, who was kneeling on one knee. She stared coldly at Elder Chiu. This person was Mu Shui, who had rushed over from behind. Mu Shui was trying her best to control the green lotus in the air to block the powerful palm print. Her face was ghastly pale and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her lips. Miss. Elder Chiu's face changed. He didn't expect Mu Shui to block the attack for Zhuan. He waved his right hand and the terrifying palm print in the air disappeared. Elder Chiu stomped on the ground and landed in front of Mu Shui. His face was filled with worry. Swoosh! At the same time, Lu Hantian, who had been pushed back by Elder Chiu, stepped on a blood-red spear and arrived beside Zhuan. He stared at Elder Chiu with fear in his eyes. The strength of the man in the bronze mask in front of him was unfathomable. He was a genuine sovereign realm cultivator. Even Lu Hantian could not do anything to such a cultivator. Zhuan, are you all right? Lu Hantian looked worriedly at Zhuan. Zhuan shook his head and stood up. He stared at the beautiful figure in front of him with a complicated expression. This woman was actually willing to take on the elder's attack for him. That was an imperial realm cultivator. If she was not careful, she would be in danger of dying. Zhuan knew that other than Mu Qinshui, no other woman would stand up for him. Mu Qinshui? Zhuan suddenly took a step forward. His gaze was firmly fixed on Mu Qinshui's figure. His voice was clear and firm. He was increasingly certain that this Mu Qinshui in front of him was Mu Qinshui. After he said this, Mu Qinshui, who had her back to him, trembled. She shook her head and said, "You've got the wrong person. I'm Mu Qinshui, not Mu Qinshui." "You are Mu Qinshui." Zhuan took another step forward. His gaze was still fixed on Mu Qinshui. His voice became even more resounding. As the saintess of the Burning Heaven sect, I can see that your attitude towards me is different from others. You've even reminded me many times. And this 7-colored essence stone, such a precious item, you're willing to give it to me. If you're not Mu Chenxue, then we're not related. Why are you treating me like this? You're even willing to give me the 7-colored essence stone? Taking another step forward, Zhuowen's voice became even more certain. His tone became a little shaky, and his lips trembled. He did not expect this Mu Chenxue in front of him to be the Mu Chenxue that he had been yearning for day and night. Why did she cover herself with a veil? Why did she not dare to meet him? These questions instantly appeared in Zhuowen's mind. However, he overturned them one by one. He was certain that this Mu Chenxue in front of him was Mu Chenxue. Mu Shui was silent. She did not speak, but her slightly trembling shoulders completely exposed the emotions in her heart at this moment. Don't go over. Lu Hantian naturally did not know Mu Chenxue. It seemed that Zhuowen knew this Burning Heaven sect's saintess. However, Elder Qiu was still by Mu Chenxue's side. Lu Hantian was worried that Zhuowen would walk right into a trap if he went over. At this moment, Zhuowen had already completely ignored Lu Hantian and Qiu Yan. In his eyes, there was only the beautiful figure in front of him. This was because the woman in front of him was Mu Chenxue, the love that he had been yearning for day and night. Mu Chenxue, this time, I won't let you leave me again because you're my woman. With that, Zhuowen took another step forward. His eyes were filled with unswerving determination. Last time, Zhuowen knew that his cultivation was insufficient, so he did not have the qualifications to make Mu Chenxue stay. But now, although he knew that the gap between him and Mu Chenxue was still huge, it was not as huge as it was in the ancient cave mansion. This time, Zhuowen would not allow Mu Chenxue to leave his sight. How dare you? How dare you speak to my young miss like that? When Zhuowen said that Mu Chenxue was him, Elder Qiu could not stand it anymore. He roared and a terrifying aura gushed out. Puchi! Zhuowen's chest felt stuffy and he spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he did not retreat. His gaze was still fixed on Mu Chenxue with unswerving determination. No matter how great your background is, and no matter how insignificant I, Zhuowen, am now, I, Zhuowen, have promised you in the past. I, have sworn to the heavens that I, will take you as my wife. Boom. Zhuowen roared and the green coffin on his back opened by half. A pair of strange blood-red eyes appeared in the gap of the green coffin. A terrifying pressure came out and faintly resisted Elder Qiu's aura. Zhuowen walked forward slowly like an old bull pulling a cart. His gaze was fixed on Mu Chenxue and his face was filled with unswerving determination. Seeing Zhuowen's actions, Elder Qiu had a complicated expression on his face. However, he did not make a move. Instead, he silently watched as Zhuowen walked towards Mu Chenxue. Finally, Zhuowen arrived in front of Mu Chenxue. He raised his head and his clear eyes stared at the veiled lady in front of him. He saw a pair of eyes that were as beautiful as the starry sky and the sparkling tear stains at the bottom of her eyes. The veil gradually faded and a peerless face slowly appeared in front of Zhuowen. Zhuowen smiled. Wasn't this beautiful lady in front of him the Mu Chenxue that he yearned for day and night? Zhuowen slowly extended his hand and gently wiped away the tear stains on Mu Chenxue's face. He smiled gently and said, I'm sorry. I was a blockhead and realized it too late. Do you blame me? However, the instant Zhuowen's palm came into contact with Mu Chenxue's face, he felt an extremely frightening chill. Soon after, he discovered that his palm was covered in a layer of frost. A bone-chilling cold spread from his hand to his entire body. Zhuowen couldn't help but tremble. So cold. This was the only feeling Zhuowen had right now. At this moment, he also realized that something was wrong with Mu Chenxue. Mu Chenxue stood motionless in her original position. Her face was as pale as snow and the tear stains on her cheeks had unknowingly turned into 2 hard lines of ice. Miss! Elder Qiu also realized that something was wrong. He took a step forward and pressed his right hand on Mu Chenxue's hand. He also felt a bone-chilling cold. Damn it! The frost poison is acting up. Elder Chio's face was extremely ugly. He formed 2 fingers on his right hand into a sword and fiercely pointed at Mu Qinshue's forehead. Waves of powerful energy flowed from Elder Chio's body into Mu Qinshue's body. Frost poison? Zhuan took a few steps back to make room for Elder Chio. His eyes were filled with shock. This was the first time he had heard of this frost poison. The frost poison in Mu Qinshue's body is incredible. If I'm not wrong, it's probably the dark frost poison. This frost poison is the technique of the divine beast Black Tortoise. It's extremely terrifying and difficult to deal with. It belongs to the heaven rank frost energy. Xiao Hei's voice suddenly sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Her voice was filled with shock. Clearly, the dark frost poison was extremely terrifying. Even Xiao Hei felt that it was difficult to deal with. What? Heaven rank frost energy? Zhuowen's eyes narrowed when he heard that. He did not expect that Mu Qinshue's body was actually hiding a heaven rank frost energy like the dark frost poison. This was a terrifying energy comparable to the heaven flame. Ordinary people would definitely die if they touched it. I finally know that the old man wearing the bronze mask is determined to kill you. The 7-colored soul essence stone in your body has a miraculous effect in suppressing the dark frost poison. Originally, with the 7-colored soul essence stone, this Mu Qinshu should be able to suppress the frost poison for 10 years. Now that I've given it to you, it won't be able to suppress it for long. At most, it can only last for half a year. Moreover, this is because this Mu Qinshu used her cultivation to suppress it. But just now, she blocked that old man's attack for you and suffered serious injuries. She can no longer suppress the dark frost poison in her body, so she fell into such a situation. At this point, Xiao Hei said with a complicated expression, "This woman's feelings for you are really deep. She actually went to such an extent for you. I'm afraid it's because she wants you to enter the top 5 of the Azure Emperor leaderboard." Hearing that, Zhuowen's mind exploded like thunder. He could not help but take a few steps back. His face was filled with shock. He also did not expect that Mu Qinshu would actually make such a sacrifice for him. He simply did not expect this. Then, if I give the 7-colored soul essence stone back to Mu Qinshu, will it be able to suppress the dark frost poison again? Zhuan quickly asked, perhaps because he had grasped onto a life-saving straw. The 7-colored soul essence stone can only suppress it. Now that the dark frost poison has erupted, it is just like a useless stone to Mu Qinshu. Xiao Hei shook her head. Zhuan took a few steps back again. His face was extremely pale as he muttered to himself, "Is there no other way?" Looking at Mu Qinshu, who had lost consciousness because of the dark frost poison, Zhuowen's heart slowly sank. A knife-like pain slowly rose in Zhuowen's heart. His heart was in so much pain that he wanted to howl at the sky. It was so painful that it tore his heart and lungs apart. Don't be rash. There is another way. Sensing that Zhuowen's mood was not right, Xiao Hei quickly said. Hearing Xiao Hei's words, Wen finally calmed down. He quickly asked, "What is it? Tell me quickly." You have 7 types of earth fire in your body. Moreover, you also have the unique secret spirit skill, the flame fusion art. As long as you can gather 9 types of earth fire and use the flame fusion art, you will be able to fuse the legendary heavenly fire. The dark frost poison is a heavenly cold qi. If you can fuse the heavenly fire, you will be able to completely remove the dark frost poison in Mu Qinshue's body. Xiao Hei suddenly said, "You also saw that I only have 7 types of earth fire in my body. I am still 2 types away from 9. Moreover, Mu Qinshue's condition is not good. It is too late now," Zhuowen said with a bitter smile. Chapter 7:18. Suppressing the cold poison. When Xiao Hei said that, Zhuowen's eyes lit up like the brightest star in the night sky. Xiao Hei was right. The fire fusion art was a powerful secret spirit technique created to create heavenly fire. By gathering 9 types of earth fire, one would be able to fuse heavenly fire. Zhuan now had 7 types of earth fire in his body and could fuse them to create the terrifying 7-colored phoenix. Although the 7-colored phoenix was not considered a heavenly fire, it was formed from 7 types of earth fire. Therefore, it was much more powerful than earth fire. It was a terrifying flame that was between earth fire and heavenly fire. Although the dark cold poison was a heaven-grade cold chi, the dark cold poison that remained in Mu Qinshue's body was only a small part of it. It was not the complete source of the dark cold poison. The seven-colored phoenix was enough to suppress the dark cold poison in Mu Qinshue's body. The seven-colored phoenix is much more powerful than ordinary earth fire. Will it harm Mu Qinshu? Zhuan asked worriedly. Don't worry. Leave everything to me. I can still control the seven-colored phoenix to suppress the dark cold poison in Mu Qinshue's body. However, I will need your help, Xiaohei said calmly. Hearing this, Zhuo Wen's lips curled into a smile. He knew that since Xiaohei had said so, then the chances of suppressing the dark cold poison were extremely high. At this moment, Elder Qiu slowly retracted his hand. Mu Qinshue's face was much rosier now. However, she had fainted and collapsed on Elder Qiu's arm. Elder Qiu's expression was extremely ugly. Originally, the dark cold poison in Mu Qinshue's body should have erupted half a year later. However, due to her severe injuries, she was unable to suppress them and the dark cold poison finally erupted. At this moment, Elder Qiu's heart was filled with regret. If he had known this would happen, he would not have lost his mind and attacked Zhuan. Now that Mu Qinshu was in such a state, he was also responsible for it. How is Mu Qinshu? Seeing that Mu Qinshue's complexion had become rosier, Zhuan hurriedly stepped forward with a hint of joy on his face. As expected of an Emperor Realm expert, Qiu Yan was able to suppress the dark cold poison that erupted from Mu Qinshue's body. It's all because of you. You've caused my young miss to become like this, and you can still laugh. Elder Qiu abruptly turned his head as a burst of energy shot out and smashed into Zhuowen's chest. Zhuan let out a muffled groan as he retreated dozens of steps and spat out a mouthful of blood. If it wasn't for you, how could young miss have become like this? Let me tell you, the dark cold poison in young miss' body is extremely terrifying. Even this old man can only suppress it for half a day. After half a day, the dark cold poison will erupt here. At that time, young miss' life will be in danger. It's all because of you. If it weren't for you, the young miss wouldn't have died. Today, I will definitely kill you. As he spoke, Elder Qiu stomped his foot and glared at Zhuan, intending to directly attack. I have a way to suppress the dark cold poison for a long period of time. Zhuan ignored Elder Qiu's threat as he quietly stood where he was. His gaze had been fixed on Mu Qinshu the entire time. You can save young miss? Elder Qiu's eyes narrowed as he hurriedly stopped in his tracks. He furrowed his brows and pondered for a moment. The coldness in his eyes became even more intense. If he couldn't suppress the dark cold poison, how could this brat before him do it? You're lying. If even this old man can't do anything, how could you possibly have a way? Young miss has misjudged you. It turns out that you're a coward. As he spoke, Elder Qiu looked at Zhuan with even more disdain. He didn't believe that Zhuan had a way to suppress the dark cold poison. He had made up his mind that this brat was definitely lying. The murderous intent in his heart toward Zhuan became even more intense. There's no need for me to lie. Seeing that Elder Qiu didn't believe him, Zhuan knew that he had no proof. Elder Qiu wouldn't believe him. With a stomp of his foot, 7 earth fires instantly shot out from his body and circled around him. Then, Zhuan formed a seal with both hands and used the fire fusion art. The 7 earth fires instantly merged together. A high-pitched phoenix cry rang out. Then, a 7-colored phoenix shadow appeared in Zhuowen's palm. It quietly opened and closed its wings. It looked extremely intelligent. At the same time, the surrounding temperature rose at a terrifying speed. The surrounding air even seemed to distort under the high temperature. What? 7 earth fires? And they've merged together? Elder Qiu's eyes narrowed as he looked at the 7-colored phoenix in Zhuowen's palm. A trace of disbelief appeared on his face. Although earth fires were rare, it wasn't particularly difficult for an Emperor Realm expert like him to see them. However, Zhuan had 7 earth fires and had even merged them together. He had never heard of or seen such a method before. Moreover, he also realized that the seven-colored phoenix formed by the seven earth fires contained power that far surpassed that of earth fires. Although it was far from the level of heaven fires, it was much stronger than ordinary earth fires. How did you do it? Elder Chiu couldn't help but ask. Now you should believe me. This fire is called the seven-colored phoenix. Although it's not as powerful as heaven fires, it's much stronger than earth fires. Although it can't extract the dark cold poison like heaven fires, it's more than enough to suppress it. Zhuan didn't answer Elder Chiu's question. Instead, he looked straight at Elder Chiu as if he was asking for his opinion. After a moment of silence, Elder Chiu said, "Your seven-colored phoenix is indeed powerful. It can suppress the dark cold poison. However, if you want to suppress the dark cold poison, you have to go deep into the young lady's body. You're so young. Can you control the seven-colored phoenix precisely?" Elder Chiu's meaning was clear. The seven-colored phoenix was extremely powerful. If he wasn't careful, he might injure Mu Qinshue's internal organs. If Zhuan didn't have enough control, Qiuyan wouldn't be at ease with Zhuan suppressing the dark cold poison for Mu Qinshu. Do I have a choice now? In half a day, the dark cold poison in Mu Qinshue's body will erupt. Is there any use in worrying about this now? Zhuan said somewhat angrily. Mu Qinshue's life was already in danger, yet Qiuyan was still worrying about this and that. How could Zhuan not be angry? When Qiuqiu heard this, he suddenly realized that Zhuan was right. He really didn't have a choice now. If he didn't suppress the dark cold poison in Mu Qinshue's body as soon as possible, she would still die in half a day. Right now, it was better to let Zhuan treat a dead horse as a living horse. Perhaps there would still be a trace of hope. If the young lady dies, you will also be buried with her. You better not have any wishful thinking. Elder Chiu threatened fiercely. Now I know. Can you allow me to get close to Mu Qinshu? Nodding, Zhuan said coldly. Go. Elder Chiu snorted. Zhuan slowly walked towards Mu Qinshu. Looking at the beauty in front of him who had fainted, Zhuan's heart ached. Mu Qinshu had become like this, and he, Zhuan, couldn't escape responsibility. Why do you have to do this? Gently caressing Mu Qinshue's smooth and cold face, Zhuan's heart trembled. His eyes were filled with pity. Xiaohei, take a look. Where is the dark cold poison hiding in Mu Qinshue's body? Zhuan silently instructed Xiaohei in his heart as he carefully examined Mu Qinshue's delicate face. Leave it to me. Xiaohei responded. Following Zhuan's right fingertip, with a whoosh, it entered Mu Qinshue's body. Qiuyan, who was standing behind Zhuan, frowned. When Zhuan was caressing Mu Qinshue's face earlier, he felt that there seemed to be another unfamiliar aura in Zhuan's body. This aura was extremely obscure and gave him a faint feeling of dread. Is it just my imagination? Qiuyan muttered softly. His gaze was focused on Zhuan's back. It seemed that the young man in front of him was not as simple as he had imagined. The black gas that Xiaohei had transformed into circulated around Mu Qinshue's body once before returning to Zhuan's body. Xiaohei, how is it? Where is the dark cold poison hiding in Mu Qinshue's body? Zhuan anxiously asked. Xiaohei was silent for a moment. Then, its voice became slightly heavy as it said, Kid, it's a little tricky this time. The dark cold poison is actually hiding in this girl's dantian. The seven-colored phoenix is very powerful. If we are not careful, I'm afraid that this girl's dantian may be destroyed. At that time, she may become a cripple. Upon hearing this, Zhuan's pupils shrank. He did not expect that the dark cold poison would actually be near Mu Qinshue's dantian. The dantian was the foundation of a martial artist. If it was destroyed, it was no different from being a cripple. In this world where the strong were respected, a cripple had no dignity at all. They would only be bullied. Mu Qinshu was extremely talented. Her strength was also far greater than Zhuan's. She was a rare genius. If she became a cripple because of this, Mu Qinshu would not be able to accept it. Becoming a cripple is better than dying. Besides, didn't you say that it's possible? It's just a possibility. If we are careful, we should be able to successfully suppress the dark cold poison without harming her dantian. Taking a deep breath, Zhuowen's eyes flashed. No matter what, even if Mu Chenxue became a cripple, he, Tun, would stay by her side and protect her. Let's go. This is the wilderness and is not suitable for suppressing the dark cold poison for this girl. Let's return to the drunken spring pavilion or the imperial city first. Xiao He said indifferently. Nodding his head, Duan turned his head and said to Qiu Yen behind him, "This place is not suitable for suppressing the dark cold poison. We need a quiet environment. Let's return to the drunken spring pavilion first." Upon hearing this, Qiu Yen nodded and said, "Then let's return to the imperial city first." As he spoke, Qiu Yen waved his sleeve. Instantly, the vermilion bird that was still far away in the horizon let out a sharp cry and swooped down, arriving in front of the group in an instant. The vermilion bird is fast. Let's return on the vermilion bird. Qiu Yen was the first to climb onto the vermilion bird's back. He looked at Zhuan and Lu Hantian and said indifferently. Zhuan did not hesitate. He carried Mu Chenxue with both hands and jumped onto the vermilion bird. Lu Hantian hesitated for a moment before also climbing onto the vermilion bird's back. The vermilion bird let out a sharp cry once again. It spread its wings and raised countless gales. It turned into a stream of fire and swept towards the horizon. Its speed was as fast as lightning and it instantly disappeared into the horizon. Chapter 719. Successful suppression. When the vermilion bird landed on the intoxicated spring pavilion, it naturally attracted the attention of many people. Many people looked at the vermilion bird with a trace of reverence. Everyone knew that the person who possessed a terrifying mount like the vermilion bird was the mysterious holy maiden of the Burning Heaven sect. She was a noble existence that even the Azure Emperor had to treat with caution. Luo Xing, Qing Lian, LV Tao and the other geniuses of the Muqin County were all awakened by the vermilion bird's movement. They all came out and looked at the vermilion bird that had landed. What made them stunned was that Lu Hantian and Zhuan were also on the vermilion bird. Furthermore, Yuan was carrying a devastatingly beautiful woman in his arms. This woman was like a fairy with an extraordinary temperament. When LV Tao and the others saw Mu Chenxue, their eyes involuntarily revealed infatuation. Some of them were even stunned on the spot. Mu Chenxue was too beautiful. She was so beautiful that she didn't seem like a woman of the mortal world. She was like a fairy from the heavens. Furthermore, at this moment, Mu Chenxue was curled up in Zhuowen's arms. She was shivering like a frightened kitten. She looked even more delicate and pitiful, causing others to involuntarily feel pity for her. Looking at the beautiful Mu Chenxue, a trace of surprise appeared in the eyes of Qing Lian and Luo Xing. Especially when they saw that Zhuowen seemed to be extremely worried about Mu Chenxue, the two of them couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Jumping down from the vermilion bird, Yuan took a step and directly flew towards the side room of the Snow Moon region. With a few leaps, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Zhuan didn't have much time to care about others. Right now, he only had Mu Chenxue in his heart. After Zhuan left, Lu Hantian and Qiu Yen also walked down. LV Tao, Luo Xing and the others immediately gathered around them. Standing in front of everyone, Lu Nantian looked at Qiu Yen, who was beside Lu Hantian, with a puzzled expression. If his guess wasn't wrong, Qiu Yen, who was beside Lu Hantian, should be from the Burning Heaven sect. Why was Lu Hantian walking with him? Big brother, what happened? Lu Nantian asked in astonishment. Sigh. It's a long story. Lu Hantian's brows furrowed brows. His face was filled with worry. Seeing Lu Hantian's expression, Lu Nantian became even more puzzled. This was the first time he had seen Lu Hantian reveal such an expression. Thinking about Zhuowen's strange behavior, Lu Nantian knew that this matter was definitely related to Zhuan. If Zhuan is unable to help Miss successfully suppress the dark cold poison, then that brat must be buried with Mississippi. Qiu Yen stood to the side with his arms crossed as he spoke in an unfriendly tone. Lu Hantian slightly furrowed his brows. For once, he didn't refute Qiu Yan's words. After all, Qiu Yen was a genuine Emperor realm expert. His strength was extremely terrifying. Lu Hantian was extremely afraid of him, so he didn't dare to refute. Lu Hantian's display of fear was naturally seen by Lu Nantian and the others. They weren't stupid. There was only one kind of person who could make Lu Hantian so afraid, and that was a terrifying Emperor Realm expert. In other words, this bronze-masked Xiao Yan was very likely an Emperor Realm expert like Emperor Qin. That woman just now was the Burning Heaven Sect's holy maiden? Suddenly, Luo Xing's beautiful eyes flickered. In the end, she still asked the question that she wanted to know the most. Yes, that is indeed the Burning Heaven Sect's holy maiden. Zhuan seems to know her. Lu Hantian nodded. Hearing this, everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. They didn't expect Zhuan to know someone like the Burning Heaven Sect's holy maiden. Moreover, they seemed to be extremely close. How did Zhuan do it? Just as everyone was wondering, Zhuan had already carried Mu Chenxue into the room. It's so cold. Mu Chenxue shivered. Her eyes were tightly shut as she curled up in Zhuowen's arms. Her helpless expression made Zhuowen's heart ache. It'll be done soon. Gently stroking Mu Chenxue's beautiful hair, Zhuan slowly placed Mu Chenxue on the bed. Soon after, he said to Xiao He, I'm counting on you. Summon the seven-colored phoenix first. A black light drilled out from between Zhuowen's eyebrows and turned into Xiao He's appearance. At this moment, Xiao He's expression was extremely grave. Nodding, Yuan didn't dare to delay. He quickly summoned 7 types of earth fire and used the fire fusion art to fuse them into a 7-colored phoenix. After a while, a palm-sized 7-colored phoenix appeared in Zhuowen's right palm. It flapped its wings and looked extremely lifelike. This Dragon Lord still needs the help of your mental energy. Release your mental energy and channel it into my body. Xiao He nodded and continued. Without hesitation, Zhuowen released his mental energy. Like rivers flowing into the sea, it flowed into Xiao He's body. In an instant, Xiao He's spiritual body looked much more solid. Xiao He waved its right paw. Immediately, the 7-colored phoenix that was quietly hovering in Zhuowen's palm let out a phoenix cry and circled around Xiao He's body. Before the suppression ends, you must continuously replenish my mental energy. If my mental energy is cut off, everything will be for naught. Xiao He said with a grave expression. Hearing this, Zhuowen's expression turned serious and he hurriedly nodded. It seemed that his mental energy played a significant role in this. Otherwise, Xiao He wouldn't have warned him in such a serious manner. Fortunately, Zhuowen had cultivated the great Yen scripture. His mental energy was much stronger than that of an ordinary grade 4 Arcana Master. It was already close to the level of a grade 5 Arcana Master. He was still quite confident. I'm going to start. During this process, don't disturb this Dragon Lord. As it spoke, Xiao He's expression became even more serious. Xiao He waved its paw. Immediately, the 7-colored phoenix circling around it followed its paw and slowly approached Mu Chenxue. As the dark cold poison was located near Mu Chenxue's dantian, Xiao He waved its paw when the 7-colored phoenix flew towards her abdomen. The clothes around her abdomen were instantly turned to dust, revealing a flawless white abdomen. At this moment, Xiao He's gaze was serious and focused. Its little paw pressed down gently. Under Xiao He's control, the 7-colored phoenix slowly descended. When it was about to reach Mu Chenxue's abdomen, Xiao He's movements were extremely slow. It was as slow as a tortoise. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In the end, the 7-colored phoenix still reached Mu Chenxue's abdomen. Immediately, waves of black cold qi poured out from Mu Chenxue's abdomen. It was actually trying to keep the 7-colored phoenix outside. You want to stop this Dragon Lord? Xiao He snorted coldly. Its little paw pressed down. Instantly, the 7-colored phoenix's aura became even more powerful and terrifying. It actually directly suppressed the black cold qi that was pouring out. Meanwhile, the 7-colored phoenix also slowly burrowed into Mu Chenxue's abdomen. After an hour, the 7-colored phoenix finally completely entered Mu Chenxue's body. Meanwhile, the originally trembling and pale Mu Chenxue's delicate body trembled. She actually let out a pained moan. This is the most critical moment. You must not lose your mental energy, Xiao He turned around after the seven-colored phoenix entered Mu Qinshue's body. It was rather serious as it instructed. At this moment, fine beads of sweat appeared on Zhuowen's forehead. The amount of mental energy that Xiao He needed to control the seven-colored phoenix had greatly exceeded his expectations. Even though Zhuan cultivated the Great Yen scripture and his mental energy was far superior to that of an ordinary arcana master, it was still somewhat lacking under Xiao He's extravagant use of mental energy. Don't worry. The mental energy will not be lost. Hurry up and suppress the cold poison in Mu Qinshue's body. Zhuan gritted his teeth and said. Xiao He nodded. It once again extracted a large portion of the mental energy from Zhuowen's body. With a wave of its little paw, it did its best to control the seven-colored phoenix near Mu Qinshue's dantian. Right now, Xiao He was truly doing its best. It was afraid that the seven-colored phoenix would completely destroy Mu Qinshue's dantian if it was not careful. If it were not for the fact that it was worried about the dantian, the dark cold poison would have been suppressed by the seven-colored phoenix a long time ago. After all, this was merely a strand of cold qi within the dark cold poison. Its power was far from being a match for the seven-colored phoenix. Time slowly passed by. 6 hours had passed, and it was gradually getting late. All the lights in the capital had basically been extinguished. It was terrifyingly silent. Outside Zhuowen's room, Lu Hantian and Qiu Yan stood silently. They did not say a word, and their faces were filled with seriousness. Behind the two of them were the geniuses from Muqin County, led by Lu Hantian and Luo Xing. Earlier, Lu Hantian had already explained the entire situation. Everyone finally knew the relationship between Zhuowen and Mu Qinshu. Senior sister. Qing Lian looked at Luo Xing as a bitter smile appeared on her lips. Luo Xing's bitter smile became even more pronounced. She finally knew why Zhuowen was so unromantic. His heart had already been filled by another woman. Moreover, the woman that Zhuowen liked was actually of such venerated status and exceptional talent. Even Luo Xing would feel a sense of inferiority when standing before Mu Qinshu. Junior sister Qing Lian. We're still friends with Zhuowen, aren't we? Luo Xing suddenly smiled. Although her smile was a little forced, she had thought it through in her heart. Qing Lian could not help but be stunned when she heard this. Soon after, she also smiled. That's right, they were still friends with Zhuowen. It's already been 6 hours and he still hasn't come out? Qiu Yan said with a frown. There are still 6 hours before the cold poison erupts. We'll only know the final result after daybreak, Lu Hantian said indifferently. I hope that kid can really succeed. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Qiu Yan snorted coldly. Time passed slowly. Another 3 hours had passed. The dark night slowly faded away, revealing a trace of white. Dawn was about to arrive. In the room, Zhuowen's face was extremely pale. His lips were dry and cracked, and he was dizzy. For 12 hours, he had been continuously transferring mental energy to Xiao He. Now, he had almost exhausted all the mental energy in his Naiwen palace. He had even overdrawn a lot of it. Just as Zhuowen was about to collapse, Xiao He suddenly stopped absorbing mental energy. Xiao He sighed softly and glanced at Zhuowen. I've finally completely suppressed the dark cold poison. This time, I should be able to suppress this woman for about 3 years. If the heavenly fire doesn't get rid of it in 3 years, this woman will definitely die. I'll go back and rest first. Chapter 720. Rapid Improvement, 3 years? Hearing Xiao He's words, Zhuowen let out a sigh of relief. At least Mu Qinshu still had 3 years. Zhuowen was confident that he could find the last 2 earth fires within 3 years and merge them to form the heavenly fire. 3 years is enough. I will find the heavenly fire for you. Gently caressing Mu Qinshu's delicate face, Zhuowen's eyelids drooped slightly. A strong sense of exhaustion immediately surged into his heart. Just now, when he was assisting Xiao He, his mental energy had almost been overdrawn. The only reason he could last until now was because of his willpower. Now that he knew that the dark cold poison in Mu Qinshu's body had been completely suppressed, Zhuowen naturally did not resist this tiredness. Tightly holding Mu Qinshue's jade-like hand, Yuan slowly closed his eyes and rested his head on the side of the bed. Not long after Zhuowen fell asleep, Mu Qinshu, who was lying on the bed, moved her eyelids slightly. She slowly opened her eyes. A trace of doubt appeared in her beautiful starry eyes. She remembered that in order to block Qiu Yan's attack last night, she was seriously injured. As a result, she was unable to suppress the dark cold poison in her body, causing it to erupt prematurely. She knew the power of the dark cold poison better than anyone. Once it erupted, what awaited her was death. There was no luck. But now, she looked perfectly fine. She was not dead. However, she realized that the dark cold poison that should have erupted near her dantian did not. Instead, it was curled up in a corner. Beside the dark frost poison, there was a lifelike seven-colored phoenix that constantly circled the dark frost poison. The terrifying temperature and the extremely low temperature of the dark frost poison canceled each other out. Overall, the dark frost poison was completely suppressed by the seven-colored phoenix. Mu Qinshu knew that this seven-colored phoenix that suppressed the dark cold poison must have someone helping her suppress the dark cold poison in her body. Mu Qinshu wanted to get up, but she realized that her right hand was slightly heavy, as if it was pressing on something. She tilted her head slightly and immediately saw the sleeping Jun. Zhuowen? Could it be that he helped me suppress the dark cold poison in my body? Mu Qinshu was exceptionally intelligent. She could see the exhaustion on Zhuowen's face. She then recalled that the seven-colored phoenix was definitely not Qiu Yan's doing. Therefore, the only person who could use the seven-colored phoenix to help her was the young man who was sleeping in front of her. Thinking of this, Mu Qinshue's cold and pretty face revealed a sweet smile. Her beautiful eyes were filled with endless gentleness. Zhuowen was the first man she liked. She could do a lot for Zhuowen, and she didn't even need anything in return. However, when she thought of the person she loved risking his life to save her, Mu Qinshu was truly happy. She was happy from the bottom of her heart. Zhuowen, thank you. As her slender fingers gently brushed across Zhuowen's forehead, Mu Qinshue's face flushed red. Soon after, she bent down and her cherry-red lips slowly pressed against Zhuowen's forehead. A soft sound of breaking air came from outside the room. Silently, Qiu Yan's figure appeared in the room. Miss, are you all right? Looking at the beautiful lady sitting on the bed in front of him, Qiu Yan's face revealed a joyful expression. Old Qiu, don't act impulsively in the future. Mu Qinshue's beautiful eyes turned slightly and her gaze landed on Qiu Yan. Her expression was somewhat cold. When Qiu Yan heard this, his face was filled with shame. He softly said, Miss, it's all my fault. I won't be impulsive in the future. This Zhuowen is indeed extraordinary. He was actually able to help you suppress the dark cold poison. I wonder how long he can suppress it? When she saw Qiu Yan's sincerity, the anger on Mu Qinshue's face slowly receded. She indifferently said, it should be able to suppress it for 3 years. 3 years? When he heard this, Qiu Yan's face was somewhat disappointed. 3 years was too short. However, he also knew that being able to suppress the dark cold poison for 3 years was indeed commendable. Miss, shouldn't we be leaving now? Looking at Zhuowen, who was already sound asleep, Qiu Yan somewhat hesitantly said, That's right. It's time to leave. Deeply staring at Zhuowen, who was still sound asleep, Mu Qinshu softly sighed. She gently withdrew her right hand and walked off the bed and had a very long dream. It was a very realistic dream. In the dream, he walked aimlessly and his surroundings were completely dark. The only source of light was the beautiful figure in front of him. Zhuowen clearly knew that the beautiful figure was Mu Qinshu. However, Mu Qinshu kept getting further and further away from him. Even though Zhuowen chased after her with all his might, the distance between the two of them did not close. Instead, it grew further and further away until the surrounding space once again turned into darkness. Slowly opening his eyes, Zhuowen discovered that he was already lying on the bed. He clearly remembered that before he fell asleep, he should have been beside Mu Qinshue's bed. Why was he lying on the bed now? Abruptly getting up, Zhuowen discovered that in the room, Lu Hantian was sitting at the table, pouring wine for himself. Seeing that Zhuan had woken up, Lu Hantian waved his right hand and a cup of wine instantly appeared in Zhuan's hand. "Drink a cup first," Lu Hantian said softly. Nodding his head, Zhuan raised his head and drank the cup of wine. Instantly, a spicy taste filled his throat, causing Zhuan to involuntarily cough. This wine was so spicy and bitter. After drinking the wine, Zhuan asked in a deep voice, "How many days have I been asleep?" "1 day and 1 night. Also, Mu Chenxue has left." Lu Hantian was silent for a moment before he suddenly spoke. Shaking his right hand, Zhuan's pupils shrank. Although he had some guesses, Zhuan still felt a little melancholy when he heard the news. "This is the envelope Mu Chenxue left behind before she left. She asked me to pass it to you." Lu Hantian spoke again. With a flick of his finger, a ray of light flashed past and an envelope landed in front of Zhuan. He gently opened the envelope. There wasn't much handwriting inside, only a few sentences. "I hate you for not being like Jiang Luiyue. North and south, east and west, north and south, east and west, we can only accompany each other without parting. Thank you. I knew that you would definitely be able to enter the Divine Academy. I hate you for not being like Jiang Luiyue. North and south, east and west, north and south, we can only accompany each other without parting." Softly reciting this poem, Zhuan's lips curled up. Zhuan would definitely enter the Divine Academy. Zhuan would definitely meet Mu Chenxue again. "I've already delivered the letter. I'll take my leave first." Seeing that Zhuan's mood wasn't as low as he had imagined, Lu Hantian let out a sigh of relief. He was afraid that Mu Chenxue's departure would cause some trouble for Zhuan. Now it seemed that he had worried too much. "Big brother Hantian, many thanks to you this time," Zhuan respectfully said to Lu Hantian. Zhuan could see that Lu Hantian had a trace of fatigue between his brows. It was clear that while he was asleep, Lu Hantian had been guarding the room the entire time. What are you thanking me for? I'm your big brother. You don't have to treat me like an outsider. Since you're fine now, I'll take my leave first. Also, don't slack off. 3 months later, the Azure Emperor ranking tournament will begin. You better prepare yourself. It's best if you can make a breakthrough during this period of time. When the time comes, prepare yourself for the tournament. After saying that, Lu Hantian stepped out of the room and left. Ranking tournament? This time, I must do my best to get into the top 5 of the Azure Emperor ranking. Squinting his eyes, Zhuan was determined to get into the top 5 of the Azure Emperor ranking. However, he also knew that there were many geniuses who were stronger than him. Therefore, if he wanted to enter the top 5, he had to become stronger. Thinking of this, Zhuan flicked his finger and took out a ball of light from his spiritual ring. This ball of light had a human-shaped infant curled up in it. It was the nascent soul that Zhuan had obtained from the underground river. There was still half of the nascent soul's energy left. If Zhuan absorbed all of the remaining energy, his cultivation would definitely improve. Moreover, Zhuan had a treasure like the 7-colored soul essence stone. It was enough to raise his mental strength by a whole realm. At that time, he would be a complete grade 5 Arcana Master. At that time, Zhuan would be able to display the true power of the greater infinite sword formation. Let's absorb the nascent soul's energy first. Thinking of this, Zhuan sat cross-legged on the futon. Holding the sparkling nascent soul in his right hand, he circulated the Yuan force in his body. The vast energy in the nascent soul flowed into Zhuan's body like rivers flowing into the sea. Zhuan could not help but feel extremely comfortable. A month passed in the blink of an eye. During this month, Zhuan had basically been in seclusion in his room, absorbing the nascent soul in his hand. Finally, after a month, he had completely absorbed the nascent soul's energy. The nascent soul's energy was extremely vast. It was also very suitable for warriors to absorb and transform into Yuan force. Therefore, Zhuan's cultivation soared from the initial stage of the ultimate 7-wheel Emperor realm to the peak of the ultimate 7-wheel Emperor realm. In terms of cultivation, he was about the same as Feng Yong from the Feng family. However, Zhuan could control the existence of spear intent. He would not be afraid even if he faced Guisheng. Feng Yong was no longer a threat to Zhuan. After using the nascent soul to break through to the peak of the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm, Zhuan began to take out the seven-colored soul essence stone. He began to absorb the essence of the seven-colored soul essence stone and transform it into his mental strength. The seven-colored soul essence stone was indeed very powerful. In the second month, Zhuan's mental strength shot up like a rocket and directly broke through to grade 5. After breaking through to grade 5, his cultivation continued to rise. It finally stopped when he reached the great circle of grade 5. In 2 months, Zhuan's martial cultivation had risen from the initial stage of the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm to the peak of the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm. His mental strength had also shot up from grade 4 to grade 5. If anyone were to see this kind of speed, they would definitely be stupefied. The breakthrough in martial cultivation and mental strength had caused Zhuan's strength to undergo an earth-shattering change. Just by relying on his martial cultivation and the terrifying power of spear intent, Zhuan could crush a peak of the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm. He could even fight against an initial stage of the ultimate eight-wheel emperor realm warrior. However, if Zhuan's mental strength was included, then Zhuan was truly terrifying. An ordinary ultimate eight-wheel emperor realm warrior might not be a match for Zhuan. Don't. Suddenly, there was a crisp knock on the door. Zhuan slowly opened his eyes. "Come in." After saying that, a beautiful figure slowly walked into the room. It was Lu, the servant who specially served Zhuan. Chapter 721. White Poplar Town. Hearing Luer's words, a trace of astonishment appeared on Zhuan's face. He did not seem to be familiar with any arcana masters in the Imperial City. If there was anyone he was familiar with, it would probably be those two. It was not difficult to guess that the two arcana masters who were looking for Zhuan this time should be Master Tsangmu and Master Kuya. However, Zhuan was puzzled as to why the two of them had suddenly come to visit him. Let's go out and meet them." Nodding his head, Zhuan was rather curious as to why Tsangmu and Kuya were looking for him. Walking out of the room, Zhuan was led by Luer and directly arrived at a pavilion in front of the intoxicated spring pavilion. At the center of the pavilion, there was a stone table. 2 old men wearing long robes were sitting on the ground, drinking wine and sipping wine. At the stone table, the 2 old men who were originally drinking wine clearly noticed Zhuan's arrival and hurriedly stood up with smiles on their faces. "Tsangmu, Kuya, why are the 2 masters looking for Zhuan?" To Zhuan, the 2 of them were already acquaintances. Hence, Zhuan did not hold back and directly sat beside the 2 of them with a smile. Master Tsangmu waved his hand and dismissed Luer, who was beside Zhuan. Then he smiled at Zhuan and said, In a few days, it will be the elder selection of the Imperial City's Arcana Guild. Your mental energy has already reached grade 4 and should be able to participate." Elder selection? Hearing this, Zhuan's eyebrows raised slightly. This was the first time he had heard of this so-called elder selection. "You're new here, so it's understandable that you don't know about this elder selection. There are a total of 9 elders in the Arcana Guild headquarters in the Imperial City. You should know about this, right?" Tsangmu coughed dryly. Zhuan nodded. Indeed, he knew nothing about the headquarters of the Imperial Capital's Arcane Guild. However, Zhuan had naturally heard of the 9 great elders in the guild. It was said that the 9 great elders all had extremely high spiritual energy cultivation. Their spiritual energy was at least at the 5th rank, and it was said that the first elder was extremely mysterious. He was a 6th rank arcana master, and his strength was monstrous. The first elder's nickname was Elder Xun. Even Emperor Qing feared Elder Xun. It was said that Emperor Qing had once sparred with Elder Xiwan, but he did not gain any advantage over Elder Xiwan. It was because of this battle that everyone knew that the mysterious Elder Xiwan of the Arcane Guild was a terrifying grade 6 arcanist. There was only one such person in the entire Qingxian Empire. After listening to Master Kuraki's explanation, Zhuan finally understood the cause and effect of the elder selection. It turned out that the elder selection this time was to select the 10th elder to become an elder of the Arcane Guild. It was said that the treatment of an elder of the Arcane Guild was extremely generous. Not only could they enjoy the respect of countless arcanists in the Arcane Guild, but they could also use most of the resources in the Arcane Guild. Moreover, the mysterious Elder Shiwan would also attend the Elder Selection this time. It was said that Elder Shiwan would bring out the high-level secret spirit skill, the Art of the Transfiguration. The Art of the Transfiguration was one of the most high-level secret skills of the Arcane Guild headquarters. It was said that such a secret skill could increase the speed of an arcanist's cultivation and greatly increase the chances of a breakthrough. Basically, the 9 great elders of the Arcane Guild had all cultivated the Art of the Transfiguration, and they all relied on the Art of the Transfiguration to finally break through to become a 5th-rank arcanist. Such a precious secret spirit skill that could increase the speed of cultivation was simply a treasure to an arcanist. It was enough to cause many arcanists to fight over it. The Art of the Transfiguration is very powerful. It was said that Elder Shiwan was extremely talented, but he was also stuck at the great perfection of the 5th rank for a long time and did not succeed in breaking through his mind power. However, ever since he cultivated the Art of the Transfiguration, he successfully broke through after a few years. At this point, Master Kuraki and Master Kuya's faces were filled with excitement. The two of them were naturally very eager to obtain such a powerful secret spirit skill like the Art of the Transfiguration. Will there be any 5th-rank arcanists participating in the Elder Selection this time? Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he suddenly asked. When Master Kuraki mentioned the Art of the Transfiguration, he was also tempted. He did not expect that such a magical secret spirit skill existed in the Arcane Guild. If he could obtain the Art of the Transfiguration, wouldn't he have the hope of breaking through to the 6th rank? The reason why Zhuowen's mind power could reach the great perfection of the 5th rank was mainly because of the 7-colored stone essence. If it were not for the 7-colored stone essence, Zhuowen would need at least a few years to reach the great perfection of the 5th rank. As for the 6th rank, Zhuowen did not even think about it. He knew how difficult it was for an arcanist to reach the 6th rank. Even though he was already at the great perfection of the 5th rank, he still had no clue about breaking through. Now that the Art of the Transfiguration had such a miraculous effect, Zhuowen naturally would not let it go. Zhuowen, there are very few 5th-rank arcanists. Other than the 9 great elders of the Arcane Guild, I have never seen anyone who could reach the 5th rank. Perhaps Master Yanhua has the hope of reaching the 5th rank. Master Kuraki shook his head and smiled bitterly. Master Yanhua? Hearing Master Yanhua's name, Zhuowen could not help but squint his eyes. When he was in the appraisal hall, he suffered a great loss at the hands of Master Yanhua. If he had not escaped quickly, he would have been left behind in the appraisal hall by Master Yanhua. Zhuowen, don't tell me you want to find trouble with Master Yanhua? Although you are strong now and may not be afraid of Master Yanhua's father is the 2nd elder, Elder Luli. I advise you to think twice before you act. Seeing Zhuowen's expression, how could Master Kuraki not see through Zhuowen's thoughts? He quickly advised. Don't worry. I won't act rashly. When will the elder election be held? Zhuowen suddenly asked. 3 days later, it will be held at the Arcane Guild headquarters on the outskirts of the imperial capital. Master Kuraki said. I will participate in the elder election this time. Zhuowen nodded and said with anticipation. Zhuowen was determined to get the Art of the Transfiguration this time. After all, Zhuowen's mind power had already reached the level of the great perfection of the 5th rank. Zhuowen was still very confident in winning the elder election this time. After all, his current mind power cultivation was almost on par with the 2nd elder, Elder Luli. Moreover, this time he wanted to find Master Yanhua and settle old scores. Seeing that Zhuowen had agreed, Kuraki and Kuya nodded. The 3 of them chatted for a while more before Kuraki and Kuya bade farewell and left. Zhuowen walked the 2 of them all the way to the Drunken Spring Pavilion before stopping. 3 days later, Zhuowen and Lu Hantian bade farewell and left the Drunken Spring Pavilion. Zhuowen had also mentioned the elder election to Lu Hantian. When Lu Hantian heard that it was about the arcanists, he was not interested. After all, he was a warrior and not an arcanist. He really had no interest in the elder election. The headquarters of the Arcane Guild was not in the imperial capital. It was located in a small town thousands of miles north of the imperial capital. The town was called Baiyang Town. Outside Baiyang Town, there was a powerful origin formation that Elder Shiwan had personally set up. Even a heavenly venerable would find it difficult to break the origin formation around Baiyang Town. Perhaps only someone like the Emperor Qin could possibly break it. Only Arcanists were allowed to enter Baiyang Town freely. As for warriors who were not Arcanists, they had to be recommended by someone in the Arcane Guild and apply before they could enter. Therefore, in Baiyang Town, the number of warriors was far less than Arcanists. This town was simply a gathering place for Arcanists. A stream of light shot out from the imperial capital like an arrow and flew rapidly towards the north. Quietly standing on the back of the bronze paper kite, Yuan was wearing a loose black robe. This robe was the robe of an Arcanist. On the chest area, there were 3 stars embroidered, representing the identity of a third-rank Arcanist. Ever since Zhuowen participated in the Arcane Grand Competition in Broken Rock City, he had never entered the Arcane Guild to participate in the test again. Therefore, after Zhuowen's mind power had broken through to the 4th rank, he did not go to the Arcane Guild to receive the corresponding attire. Before Master Kuraki left, he had already instructed Zhuowen that if he wanted to enter Baiyang Town freely, he had to reveal his identity as an Arcanist. Therefore, Yuan had no choice but to wear the 3rd-rank Arcanist robe. After an hour, Yuan found a gathering place not far ahead. The gathering place had a radius of tens of thousands of miles and was enveloped by a green light shield. A terrifying wave was constantly emitted from the light shield. Inside the light shield, there were many figures wearing long robes going in and out. They were all Arcanists. Baiyang Town was indeed a gathering place for Arcanists. Just the number of Arcanists going in and out had reached more than 2 digits. This was beyond Zhuowen's expectations. Zhuowen gently patted the back of the bronze paper kite. With a sharp whistle, the bronze paper kite slowly landed at the entrance of Baiyang Town. At the entrance of Baiyang Town stood a rather large stone tablet. The words, Baiyang Town, were engraved on the surface of the stone tablet. The handwriting was vigorous and powerful, and the words were articulated perfectly. Moreover, it faintly emitted a rather powerful mind power wave. In front of the stone tablet stood 2 young men who were also wearing long robes. These 2 young men were about 25 years old and had a star drawn on their chests. They were both 1st-rank Arcanists. Zhuowen's arrival also attracted the attention of the 2 young men. When they saw Zhuowen's young face, their faces were filled with astonishment. However, when their eyes fell on the symbol on Zhuowen's chest, they could not help but gasp. 3rd-rank Arcanist? Their pupils shrank, and their eyes were filled with shock. The young man in front of them looked to be about 20 years old, but he was already a 3rd-rank Arcanist. Wasn't this talent too terrifying? Looking at the symbol on Zhuowen's chest, and then looking at the symbols on their own chests, the 2 of them looked at each other and smiled bitterly. It seemed that sometimes, comparing oneself to others was really infuriating. Chapter 722. 10 Fists Wall of Fire-White Poplar Town was bustling with people, and Zhuowen discovered that most of them were Arcanists wearing long robes. There were very few martial artists. The Arcanist Guild was located in the center of Baiyang Town. There was a huge building in the shape of a flame. At the top of the building, there was a flame burning at a terrifying temperature. The Elder Selection will begin in 4 hours. Those Grade 4 Masters should be rubbing their hands together by now. I wonder who will get the 10th Elder this time? I think it should be Master Yanhua. After all, Master Yanhua is the son of the 2nd Elder. He has the mind power of a complete Grade 4 Arcanist. Coupled with the terrifying secret skill Black Flame Sky Explosion, he is unrivaled among the Grade 4 Arcanists. Walking on the street, Zhuowen realized that many Arcanists on the street were rushing in the same direction and discussing animatedly. From the surrounding discussions, Zhuowen knew that the Elder Selection was in front of him. When he decided to get the art of the transformation, Zhuowen planned to come to the Elder Selection. Zhuowen was determined to get the art of the transformation. Thinking of this, Zhuowen followed the crowd and walked forward. After a while, he arrived at a huge square. The square was extremely strange. There were various runes drawn on the ground. Waves of strange mind power undulated in the square. At the top of the square, there were 9 high seats. At this moment, apart from the first seat, the other 8 seats were occupied by elderly arcanists. These 9 seats were prepared for the 9 great elders of the Arcanist Guild. The whereabouts of the first elder, Elder Shi Yuan, was mysterious, so it was understandable that he did not appear. Therefore, the elder selection this time was presided over by the second elder, Elder Lu Li. In the center of the square, there was a wall of fire that was dozens of feet tall. There were a total of 10 of these huge walls of fire, and each wall was more terrifying than the last. The temperature of the entire square had risen to an extremely terrifying level. Many of the arcana masters around the plaza also felt the terrifying heat coming from the wall of fire, and their expressions all changed. At this moment, Elder Lu Li, who was seated in the second seat, slowly stood up. His gaze looked at the surrounding crowd as he spoke in a faint voice. Today is the elder selection. This old man is very pleased that everyone is able to come. The rules for this year's elder selection are very simple. Everyone should have seen the 10 firewalls in the center of the square, right? This firewall is called the Firewall of 10 Fists. Those who wish to participate in the elder selection this time, you can use your mental strength to test the power of the 10 Fists firewall. The one who breaks the wall the most will become the 10th elder this time. Elder Lu Li smiled slightly after she finished speaking. She once again sat down on her seat. Her eyes involuntarily glanced towards the other side of the square. There was a figure standing there with his hands crossed. His expression was confident. The figure seemed to have felt Elder Lu Li's gaze as well. He nodded and revealed a confident smile. This person was Grandmaster Yan Hua, who had a grudge against Yun. He was also Elder Lu Li's son. Elder Lu Li's words caused quite a commotion in the surroundings of the square. Even Zhuowen revealed a surprised expression on his face. The rules for this year's elder selection were unexpectedly simple. However, Zhuowen also knew that the firewall of 10 fists in the square was definitely not simple. It was likely that most arcana masters would find it difficult to break through too many firewalls. The square descended into silence. Subsequently, a young arcana master walked out from the crowd. This person was around 27 or 28 years old. However, he was already a grade 2 arcana master. This person first respectfully bowed towards the 8 elders. Subsequently, his expression was grave as he walked towards the firewall of 10 fists. With a loud shout, the mental energy in his Naiwan palace condensed and transformed into a huge fist. Then, it violently smashed onto the first firewall. Rumble! The mental energy fist collided with the firewall, causing countless sparks to fly. The two of them were actually in a deadlock for a moment. The veins on the young man's forehead bulged. With a loud shout, all of the mental energy in his Naiwan palace poured out. That mental energy fist became much larger and instantly suppressed the firewall. The firewall shattered. However, the young man's face was extremely pale. Sweat poured down like rain and he was panting heavily. It was obvious that he had reached his limit. Do you still want to try the second firewall? Elder Lu Li asked indifferently. The young man's eyes flickered. He gritted his teeth and said, Elder, I still want to try the second one. You are determined. However, it is best for you to act within your capabilities. Elder Lu Li nodded and replied indifferently. Thank you for your advice, Elder. The young man respectfully nodded. He stood where he was and took a deep breath. His gaze was fixed on the second firewall. Not long after, the young man moved again. Terrifying mental energy condensed above his head and transformed into an even larger mental energy fist. Then, it rushed towards the second firewall. Rumble! A thunderous sound rang out. The moment the mental energy fist landed on the firewall, it was actually fiercely counterattacked by the firewall. That mental energy fist was actually instantly devoured by the firewall and turned into nothingness. Swoosh! The moment the firewall devoured the mental energy, It actually gave birth to tentacle-like flames that suddenly swept towards the young man. The young man was so shocked that he continuously retreated. His face was extremely pale. Unfortunately, the tentacle-like flames were too fast. They caught up to the young man in an instant and unsurprisingly engulfed him. Ah! A miserable cry rang out. The young man was instantly turned into a man of flames. Not long after, he was completely reduced to ashes. Just like that, he died before everyone's eyes. This. The surrounding arcanists all stared dumbfoundedly at the young man who had already been reduced to ashes. What a terrifying firewall of 10 fists. It actually had a counterattack. If they could not endure it, they would probably end up like the young man. For a moment, the many arcanists in the square began to hesitate. In particular, some of the arcanists with weaker mental energy had basically retracted their steps. However, the silence didn't last for long. Another figure flew onto the stage. It was a white-haired old man with 3 stars embroidered on his chest. He was a 3rd-grade arcanist. It's Master Drifting Goblet. He's at the pinnacle of the 3rd grade. He should be able to destroy the 2nd firewall. The moment the old man appeared, a commotion broke out. Everyone looked at Master Drifting Goblet with anticipation. Drifting Goblet pays his respects to the 8 elders. Master Drifting Goblet cupped his hands respectfully. Such a respectful attitude also caused the 8 elders to have a good impression of him. Drifting Goblet. Your mental energy is pretty good, but it's best if you act according to your capabilities. Elder Lioli smiled and waved his sleeve. The first wall of the firewall of 10 fists was restored to its original state. Thank you for your reminder, Elder Lioli. Master Drifting Goblet nodded. He squinted his eyes and looked at the firewall of 10 fists before him. A terrifying surge of mental energy surged out and formed a storm around him. The storm of mental energy instantly smashed into the first wall of flames, instantly destroying it. After all, Master Drifting Goblet was at the pinnacle of the 3rd grade. He was much stronger than the youth who had died earlier, so the first wall of flames wasn't able to stop him. Boom! Boom! 2 more cracks sounded out as the 2nd and 3rd walls of flames were destroyed. The storm of mental energy soon arrived at the 4th wall of flames. Boom! When the 2 walls of flames collided, sparks flew everywhere. Master Drifting Goblet frowned and stomped his foot. An even more terrifying surge of mental energy surged out, causing the storm of mental energy to grow stronger. However, the power of the 4th wall of fire was also extremely terrifying. Countless flaming tentacles burst out and violently bombarded the spiritual storm. The frequency of the bombardment was extremely high. Master Drifting Goblet spat out a mouthful of blood. When he saw the storm of mental energy dimming, his face changed. He knew that the situation wasn't good and he immediately retreated. Boom! The instant Master Drifting Goblet retreated, the storm of mental energy was destroyed. However, since Master Drifting Goblet had retreated, the firewall of 10 fists didn't pursue him. The firewall of 10 fists is terrifying. Even Master Drifting Goblet could only destroy 3 of them. Many people in the surroundings were shocked when they saw Drifting Goblet return in disappointment. A peak grade 3 Arcana Master was only able to shatter 3 of them. That meant that those weaker than Drifting Goblet wouldn't be able to shatter more than 3 of them. After Master Drifting Goblet, a few other 3rd grade Arcanists went up. However, their results weren't ideal. They couldn't even break 3 walls. There was even an unlucky 3rd grade Arcanist who couldn't get out of the firewall in time and was devoured by the flames. At this point, the surrounding 3rd grade Arcanists were all silent. They didn't dare to go up because they knew that they couldn't compete with 4th grade Arcanists. I'll go! An aged voice sounded out as another figure flew out. This person had white hair and his robes fluttered in the wind. It was Master Kuraki. Juan nodded when he saw Master Kuraki standing in front of the firewall of 10 fists. Master Kuraki's progress was fast compared to other Arcanists. His mental energy had already reached the greater 4th grade, and Juan believed that Master Kuraki would be able to destroy 5 firewalls of 10 fists. Finally, a 4th-grade arcanist is going up. His name is Kuraki, and he seems to be one of the 8th Elder's subordinates. Master Kuraki immediately attracted the attention of the crowd when he went up. Many people even recognized him. The 8th Elder, who was sitting on the 8th seat, stared at Master Kuraki with a smile on his face. "Old 8th, your subordinate Kuraki's talent is pretty good. He's only half a century old, but his mental energy has already reached the greater 4th grade. If he's properly nurtured, he'll definitely have a chance to break through to the 5th grade, Elder Glaze said to the 8th Elder. Brother Glaze is too kind. Compared to Blazing Flame, Kuraki is still lacking, the 8th Elder said modestly. Then let's wait and see Kuraki's performance. Chapter 723. SS Flaming Flames attack. Master Kuraki's face was gloomy. Although his mind power had reached the advanced 4th grade, he was still nervous when facing the 10 Fists wall. With a stomp of his foot, a terrifying mental energy burst out and surrounded Master Kuraki, forming countless transparent air blades. Go! Master Kuraki let out a loud roar, and the air blades formed by his spiritual power flew everywhere, instantly hitting the 10 Fists firewall. Boom! Boom! With 3 explosions, the first 3 firewalls of the firewall of 10 Fists collapsed instantly. However, Master Kuraki's spiritual energy blade did not slow down at all. It surged out again and hit the 4th firewall. Boom! The 4th wall of fire was broken. At this time, Master Kuraki's forehead was covered in sweat. It was obvious that breaking the 4th wall was a little difficult for him. Break the 5th wall too! Master Kuraki shouted. He exerted the mind power in his Naiwan Palace to the extreme and rushed out again. Countless chi blades gathered together and turned into a chi blade that was dozens of feet long. The chi blade slashed out and hit the 5th wall. Suddenly, there was a strange sound and countless sparks flew out like a meteor shower. The chi blade and the wall were in a stalemate for a while. Break! Master Kuraki shouted. The chi blade grew bigger. With a clear buzzing sound, the chi blade pierced through the wall like a hot knife through butter. The 5th wall was broken directly. He's worthy of being an advanced 4th grade Arcana Master. He broke the 5th wall directly. When the 5th firewall was broken, the surrounding people let out a burst of exclamations. They looked at Grandmaster Kuraki with eyes full of splendor. The 8th Elder, who was sitting on the high platform, nodded. Master Kuraki was his key disciple. He was proud to see such an outstanding performance. I wonder if Master Kuraki can break the 6th wall. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Grandmaster Kuraki's back. They were all looking forward to Grandmaster Kuraki breaking the 6th wall. Their eyes were full of hope. Finally, Master Kuraki made his move again. Once again, he unleashed a terrifying chi blade. However, this time, the chi blade he condensed was several times stronger than before. It looked extremely terrifying. Rumble! The chi blade finally landed on the 6th wall of fire. Following that, a wave of chi spread out in a circular shape. The ground shook violently, and many people almost fell to the ground. The 6th wall of fire was extremely terrifying. Even though Master Kuraki's energy blade was much more powerful than the previous one, it still couldn't break through the wall of fire. Moreover, the counterattack of this wall of fire was much more powerful than the 5th one. Endless flame tentacles emerged and bombarded the energy blade. Poochie! Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Master Kuraki's expression changed drastically. He did not expect the 6th wall of fire to be so terrifying. Rumble! The chi blade suddenly shattered, and the surface of the 6th wall actually gave birth to a monstrous sea of fire, which swept toward Master Kuraki. Master Kuraki's expression changed greatly, and he hurriedly retreated from the firewall. The 6th wall of fire is so terrifying. Even Grandmaster Kuraki had to stop here. Looking at Grandmaster Kuraki, who took the initiative to retreat, the surrounding people let out a sigh of disappointment. Originally, they had hoped that Grandmaster Kuraki would be able to break through the 6th firewall, but now it seemed impossible. Being able to break 5 walls of fire, Master Kuraki's result is already very good. Elder Glaze nodded and praised. The eighth elder frowned slightly. Obviously, Master Kuraki's performance this time did not particularly satisfy him. However, the result of breaking 5 walls of fire was indeed not bad, but it was not good either. After Master Kuraki's attempt, the other level 4 arcanists came forward one after another to try. However, none of them could break through 6 walls of fire. The highest was about the same as Master Kuraki, breaking through 5 walls of fire. Although the headquarters of the Arcane Guild was huge, level 4 arcanists were still extremely rare. After a while, most of the level 4 arcanists had tried, but none of them could break through Master Kuraki's result. At most, it was a tie. Brother Glaze, Yanhua should have made his move. I believe that with Yanhua's strength, it should be easy for him to break through 6 walls of fire. At this moment, the rest of the elders spoke one after another. Their gazes were focused on the purple figure on the other side of the square. That person was Elder Glaze's son, Master Yanhua. Thank you for your praise. Yanhua, you can make your move now. Although Elder Glaze's words were modest, there was no trace of modesty on her face. Instead, her smile was extremely bright. Yes. Finally, Master Yanhua, who was originally motionless, lowered his head and responded. He took a step and floated to the front of the 10 walls of fire. His eyes were filled with confidence. It's Master Yanhua. It's finally Master Yanhua's turn to make his move. He's a popular figure in this elder election. Moreover, according to the rumors, this elder election is actually held for Master Yanhua. Elder Glaze has great power in the Arcane Guild. She has long wanted to promote Master Yanhua to the position of elder. Unfortunately, she did not have an excuse. Now, this elder election is the opportunity for Elder Glaze to promote Master Yanhua. The surrounding people discussed animatedly. Among them, there were also some people who had foresight who gave their insightful opinions. Many people agreed with them. Although Elder Glaze's action of giving preferential treatment made many people unhappy, Master Yanhua was indeed very strong. It was only a matter of time before he was promoted to elder. Now that Elder Glaze held this elder election, it was nothing more than to push the time for Master Yanhua to be promoted to elder. Zhuowen, who was in the crowd, heard the discussions around him and nodded in agreement. Elder Glaze's action was very obvious. In the Arcane Guild, if one wanted to become an elder, one's mental energy must reach the 5th grade. Although Master Yanhua's mental energy talent was very strong, it would not be so fast for him to reach the 5th grade. It would probably take him several years. Moreover, because Grandmaster Yanhua had the terrifying secret technique that Elder Glaze had imparted to him, it was difficult for him to find a worthy opponent among the rank 4 arcanists. It was simply too difficult for the other arcanists to compete with Grandmaster Yanhua in the elder selection. Master Yanhua came to the high platform and respectfully bowed to the 8 elders. He said in a clear voice, Master Yanhua is not talented, but I am willing to give it a try. I hope that the elders will grant my wish. When Master Yanhua said that, the 8 elders on the high platform nodded in satisfaction. Master Yanhua's talent was indeed very strong. They had always thought highly of him. In the elders' opinion, Master Yanhua's promotion to the 5th grade was something that was set in stone. There was nothing wrong with giving the 10th elder's position to Master Yanhua in advance. Master Yanhua, go ahead. Don't disappoint your father. Elder Glaze laughed. Father, don't worry. Master Yanhua cupped his hands again and slowly walked to the wall of fire. His eyes were filled with arrogance. The other 4th grade arcanists were not as strong as him. They couldn't even break through the 6th wall of fire. To Master Yanhua, they were not a threat at all. This time, Master Yanhua wanted to establish his prestige in front of the other arcanists so that his path to becoming an elder would be smoother. Thinking of this, Grandmaster Yanhua stomped his foot. Instantly, a surge of mental energy gushed out. The strange thing was that Grandmaster Yanhua was surrounded by balls of black flames, like a guardian god, surrounding him in the middle. Break, break, break. Master Yanhua shouted. Black flames surrounded his body and a black flame arrow shot towards the wall of fire. The black flame arrow arrived in an instant. The first wall of fire was instantly shattered. Following that, the second and third wall of fire were shattered one after another without any delay. The third wall of fire was shattered. The black flame arrow did not lose any momentum and crashed into the fourth wall of fire. Ding! The strength of the fourth wall of fire was clearly much stronger than the previous three. Countless flame tentacles surged out and wrapped around the black flame arrow. For a moment, the black flame arrow was unable to move at all. "It's not that easy to stop me," Grandmaster Yanhua coldly snorted. He extended his right hand into the air and the black flame arrow that was entangled by him directly exploded and turned into a cloud of black flame fog. The intense explosion directly shattered the fourth wall of fire and revealed the fifth wall of fire behind it. At this moment, Master Yanhua did not show any signs of carelessness. He stomped his foot and a few more black flame arrows appeared behind him. He then shot them towards the fifth wall of fire. When the black flame arrows collided with the fifth wall of fire, they exploded again. Although the fifth wall of fire was powerful, it could not withstand the explosive power of the black flame arrows and collapsed. The sixth wall of fire. If Master Yanhua can shatter the sixth wall of fire, the position of the 10th elder will be his. When the fifth wall of fire collapsed, the surrounding people revealed excited expressions. They wanted to see if Master Yanhua could shatter the sixth wall of fire that had not been broken yet. Black flame sky explosion. A shout suddenly rang out. In front of the wall of fire, Master Yanhua stomped his foot. Endless black flame burst out from his body and formed a dense black flame arrow in the air behind him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Countless black flame arrows turned into a black rain and flew towards the sixth wall of fire. Bang, bang, bang. Dense sounds of collisions rang out continuously. Following which, the crowd was shocked to discover that the sixth wall of fire had collapsed under the black flame sky explosion. So powerful! The sixth wall of fire has collapsed just like that. Look, the black flame sky explosion is not over yet. It's heading towards the seventh wall of fire. Someone suddenly exclaimed. Following which, the crowd shifted their gazes and discovered that the countless black flame arrows that were formed by the black flame sky explosion did not disappear. Instead, they continued to fly towards the seventh wall of fire. Rumble! A thunderous sound rang out. With a kacha sound, the seventh wall of fire had completely collapsed under the crowd's gazes. The surrounding atmosphere also became silent. Chapter 724. Settling Old Score 7 Flame Walls. Grandmaster Yanhua's final result was 7 flame walls. Everyone was stunned at first, but soon after, they burst into an uproar. Grandmaster Yanhua was able to break through the 6th flame wall, which was already impressive. However, Grandmaster Yanhua was able to break through the 7th flame wall like a hot knife through butter. Everyone knew that the position of the 10th elder belonged to Grandmaster Yanhua. Because other than Grandmaster Yanhua, no other Arcana Master could break through 5 flame walls, not to mention Grandmaster Yanhua's record of 7 flame walls. At this moment, Grandmaster Yanhua slowly retreated and stood proudly a few dozen meters away from the 10 flame walls. He looked at the surrounding people and the arrogance on his face became even more intense. 7 flame walls was indeed not bad for a grade 4 Arcana Master. Grandmaster Yanhua also knew that the position of the 10th elder would be his. However, Grandmaster Yanhua was looking forward to the reward of becoming the 10th elder, the realm of the transformation technique. If he had the realm of the transformation technique, Grandmaster Yanhua was confident that he would be able to advance from grade 4 perfect to grade 5 Arcana Master in a short period of time. At that time, he would be worthy of the 10th elder's position. Ha! Yanhua, you really didn't disappoint your father. On the high platform, Elder Lu Li suddenly burst into laughter. His face was like a blooming chrysanthemum, which looked extremely ugly at this moment. The other 7 elders cupped their hands and congratulated Elder Lu Li, causing the smile on Elder Lu Li's face to become even wider. Slowly standing up, Elder Lu Li said in a clear voice, Grandmaster Yanhua broke through 7 flame walls. Such a result should be obvious to everyone, right? The selection of the elder is fair. Only those who can break through the most flame walls will be able to obtain the elder's position. Of course, if anyone thinks that they can surpass Yanhua's record, feel free to give it a try. Elder Lu Li smiled as he looked at the surrounding people. This caused many people to feel extremely helpless. Grandmaster Yanhua's result was too abnormal. It was impossible for them to achieve it. They could only look at it and sigh. Looking at the crowd that suddenly became silent, Elder Lu Li's smile became even more brilliant. He waved his right hand and said, "Since that's the case, the final candidate for the 10th elder's position is, wait." Before Elder Lu Li could finish speaking, a clear voice slowly rang out, causing Elder Lu Li's words to freeze. The sudden interruption caused Elder Lu Li to be displeased. She followed the voice and her gaze immediately landed on a young man in the crowd. The gazes of the surrounding people were also attracted by the interruption from earlier. Their gazes gathered on the body of the young man who had spoken. This was especially the case when they saw the 3 stars symbol on the young man's chest. All of them began to discuss spiritedly. This kid is really courting death. He actually dared to interrupt when Elder Lu Li was speaking. Is he tired of living? From the looks of it, this kid is only a rank 3 Arcana Master. Could it be that he wants to challenge Grandmaster Inferno? That's impossible. This kid is only a 3rd rank Arcana Master. He probably won't even be able to break through 3 firewalls. Challenging Grandmaster Pyroblast is simply courting death. In front of the 10 Fists firewall, Grandmaster Yanhua also turned his head around. His eyes focused on the young man who had spoken. His expression was startled as his pupils shrunk. This was because the young man who had spoken was no stranger to him. It was Yun who had bid against him for the boundless sword formation back at the inspection treasure hall. "Little friend, what do you mean?" Elder Lu Li was slightly displeased as she spoke. Zhuan raised his head and glanced indifferently at Elder Lu Li. His gaze then landed on Grandmaster Yanhua as he said indifferently, "Grandmaster Yanhua, what a coincidence. We meet again." Once these words were spoken, the surrounding people were stunned. From the way this young man spoke, it seemed like he knew Grandmaster Yanhua. Grandmaster Yanhua's gaze was gloomy as he coldly said, "I really didn't expect that a little bastard like you would actually dare to come to Baiyang Town. I really admire your courage and insight." Why wouldn't I dare to come? That day at the inspection treasure hall's entrance, I already said that I will remember the enmity from that day. I will definitely pay you a visit another day. Today is the day I fulfill my promise. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up as he spoke indifferently. "You intend to directly attack me?" Grandmaster Yanhua raised his eyebrows as he looked at Zhuowen as if he was looking at an idiot. This was the Arcane Guild and his father, Elder Lu Li, was on the high platform. If Zhuowen were to attack him, he would be courting death. Moreover, Yun had already fled pathetically from him. He didn't think that the current Zhuowen would be a match for him. "Heck, I'll settle this with you later. Right now, I'm here to run for the position of the 10th Elder." Zhuowen shook his head as he walked towards the flame wall of 10 fists. His gaze was as calm as water. This kid actually intends to challenge Grandmaster Yanhua. He's just a 3rd grade Arcana Master. How could he possibly break the record of 7 flame walls of 10 fists? This kid is just asking for humiliation. Let's see how this kid will end up. The surrounding people were in an uproar. However, most of them were mocking and watching a joke. What could a mere 3rd grade Arcana Master accomplish on the flame wall of 10 fists? "Oh, you also intend to run for the position of the 10th Elder? It's not that I'm trying to discourage you, but your mental energy cultivation is too low. It's simply a waste of effort. I advise you not to humiliate yourself." On the high platform, Elder Lu Li's expression was extremely displeased. He had originally planned to announce that Grandmaster Yanhua would be the 10th Elder. However, he was interrupted by a brat who smelled like milk. Moreover, this brat was only a 3rd grade Arcana Master. Therefore, Elder Lu Li was extremely displeased. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to maintain his demeanor as the 2nd Elder, he would have already attacked when Zhuowen interrupted him. "I'd like to ask Elder Lu Li, Didn't you say that the elder selection is fair and just? Isn't it fine for anyone to make a move? Why are you pushing me when I want to make a move? Or are you afraid that Grandmaster Yen Hua is inferior to me and I'll take over the position of the 10th elder? Zhuowen raised his head and looked directly at Elder Lu Li on the high platform. His words were filled with impoliteness. Who are you calling trash? Grandmaster Yen Hua's pupils shrank. He stomped his feet and stared at Zhuowen. Zhuowen's words were too presumptuous. He actually dared to call him trash in front of everyone. With Grandmaster Yen Hua's arrogant character, how could he not be angry? You want to make a move? Are you driven to desperation? It seems that both father and son are lacking in confidence. You don't dare to let me try the 10 fists flame wall. Zhuowen shook his head and mocked. Elder Lu Li frowned. The youth in front of him was young, but his tone was not small. Moreover, he had contradicted him many times. This caused Elder Lu Li to be slightly annoyed. The elder selection is fair and just. Since you want to try it, I naturally won't stop you. At this point, Elder Lu Li changed the topic and said coldly, however, you have contradicted me many times. If you can't surpass Grandmaster Yen Hua's result this time, don't blame me for punishing you with the crime of disturbance. When Elder Lu Li said this, many people, including Grandmaster Yen Hua, looked at Zhuowen with ridicule. They all knew that Zhuowen had thoroughly angered Elder Lu Li. If Zhuowen's result could not surpass Grandmaster Yen Hua's this time, Elder Lu Li would not let him go. Moreover, in their opinion, Zhuowen was bound to lose this time. Grandmaster Yen Hua was a complete Grade 4 Arcana Master, while the youth in front of them was only a Grade 3 Arcana Master. The difference between the two of them was too great. How could this youth surpass Grandmaster Yen Hua's result? Under the pitiful gazes of many people, Zhuowen slowly walked towards the 10 fists flame wall and said indifferently, "Of course." When these words came out, the surrounding people revealed strange expressions. Is there something wrong with this youth? He actually agreed to try the 10 fists flame wall. Is this kid really so confident that he can surpass Grandmaster Yen Hua? Zhuowen suddenly changed the topic and said, however, if my results surpass this trash's, I only want one of his arms. I still have a debt to settle with him back then. You want one of Grandmaster Yen Hua's arms? Elder Lu Li narrowed her eyes and said coldly, "What? You don't dare to bet?" Zhuowen's gaze suddenly fell on Grandmaster Yen Hua and said indifferently. At this moment, Grandmaster Yen Hua's eyes flickered. Zhuowen's fearlessness made him hesitate. He thought to himself, could it be that this Zhuowen has some kind of backup plan? Grandmaster Yen Hua's hesitant attitude was seen by everyone. It immediately stirred waves of private conversations. There were even quite a number of people who revealed doubtful expressions on their faces. Why wouldn't I dare to bet? If your result surpasses mine, I'll break one of your arms. However, if you can't surpass me, I'll take your life. Suddenly, Grandmaster Yen Hua said fiercely. Sure. In any case, I'll definitely take your arm. Under the strange gazes of the crowd, Zhuowen straightforwardly agreed. Such a straightforward attitude caused Grandmaster Yen Hua to faintly feel that something was wrong. At this moment, the other elders on the high platform also revealed strange expressions. This youth who suddenly appeared was really fearless. Could it be that he really had some kind of backing? Or was he deliberately mystifying things? Let's see what kind of tricks this kid will play. Elder Lu Li coldly snorted and sat back down on her seat. She indifferently stared at Zhuowen's figure. Grandmaster Yen Hua also retreated to one side. He crossed his arms and coldly looked at Zhuowen in front of him. The corner of his mouth was filled with a cold smile. Under the gazes of the crowd, Zhuowen slowly walked towards the 10 fists flame wall. A terrifying mental energy violently surged out and directly formed an endless mental energy storm around his body, tearing apart the surrounding space. Chapter 725. Breaking through 10 walls rumble. A terrifying explosion resounded as the first wall of fire was instantly broken. At the same time, the terrifying mental energy storm swept towards the second wall of fire with irresistible force. Boom, boom, boom. 3 more explosions resounded. In the blink of an eye, The mental energy storm actually broke through 3 walls of fire and reached the 5th wall of fire. The 3 explosions were like firecrackers that stirred the hearts of the crowd. Their gazes involuntarily gathered on the figure in front of the wall of fire. What astonished them was that the youth before them didn't seem to be straining at all. To be able to break through 4 walls of fire with such ease, this kid isn't simple. Grandmaster Yanhua, who was standing not far away, frowned slightly. A ripple appeared in his heart. Zhuowen breaking through 4 walls of fire made him feel a trace of astonishment. To be able to break through 4 walls of fire with a 3rd-grade mental energy, this kid isn't bad. However, this is as far as he goes. Grandmaster Yanhua revealed a confident smile. He didn't believe that Zhuowen could break through the 5th wall of fire with just a 3rd-grade mental energy. Boom! As expected, the mental energy storm that was originally unstoppable suddenly stopped when it reached the 5th wall of fire. Countless flaming tentacles emerged from the walls of fire and bombarded the mental energy storm, causing it to involuntarily retreat. Zhuowen, you can't even break through the 5th wall of fire, yet you want to break my record? What a fool's dream. Grandmaster Yanhua immediately mocked when the mental energy storm was blocked. A trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Previously they had a bet. If Zhuowen's results weren't as good as his, then Zhuowen's life would belong to him. This kid had provoked him many times and even competed with him for the greater everlasting sword formation, causing him to miss out on the opportunity to obtain the greater everlasting sword formation. He was already filled with killing intent towards this kid. Today was a great opportunity. Zhuowen didn't know what was good for him and appeared in the elder selection. He could make use of the bet from before to get rid of this kid once and for all. Who said that I can't break through the 5th wall of fire? Which dog eye of yours saw that? Zhuowen smiled coldly and stomped his foot. An even more terrifying spiritual energy surged out. The spiritual storm that had been blocked outside actually split into 3 even more terrifying spiritual storms. Gotcha! The 5th wall of fire was broken, and the storm was extremely fast. When it arrived before the 6th wall of fire, it still crushed the 6th wall of fire. Looking at the mental energy tempest that had strengthened in an instant, as well as the 5th and 6th fire walls that had been broken consecutively, the surrounding people fell into a state of silence. A 4th-tier Arcana Master. This kid is actually a 4th-tier Arcana Master. After a moment of silence, a wave of excitement broke out amongst the crowd. Breaking through 5 walls of fire and shattering the 6th was not something a rank 3 Arcana Master could accomplish. Grandmaster Yanhua's pupils shrank as his heart trembled violently. His heart thumped wildly. He did not expect Zhuowen's mental energy to suddenly increase. A rank 4 Arcana Master? This kid actually concealed himself so deeply. Grandmaster Yanhua furrowed his brows. Just as he was pondering, a crisp cracking sound suddenly rang out, immediately attracting his attention. When Grandmaster Yanhua's gaze landed on the 7th wall of fire of the 10 fists, a trace of disbelief appeared on his face. At this moment, the 7th wall of fire had actually been broken. This kid is actually a complete 4th-tier Arcana Master. He actually managed to break through the 7th wall of fire. He concealed himself so deeply. This kid is clearly wearing a rank 3 Arcana Master's robe, but he actually concealed the strength of a 4th-tier Arcana Master. What a terrifying kid! Once the 7th wall of fire was broken, the surrounding people were unable to remain calm. The sound of discussion was like a storm that spread throughout the entire space. What? This kid? On the high platform, the 8 elders all revealed astonished expressions, especially Elder Lu Li. She furrowed her brows and used a bit of strength on her right hand to crush the armrest. No wonder this kid dared to challenge Yanhua. So it turns out that he also possesses a complete 4th-tier Arcana Master. Elder Lu Li's eyes flickered as she thought to herself. In this way, Yanhua and Zhuowen's results of the 10 fists wall of fire were tied. However, with Elder Lu Li's methods, she could still push Grandmaster Yanhua to the position of the 10th elder. As for Zhuowen, Elder Lu Li narrowed her eyes. Her gaze was already filled with a dense chill. Zhuowen had provoked her many times, So Elder Luli was already very unhappy with Jun. Furthermore, this kid actually managed to break through the seventh wall of fire, tying with Yanhua. Thus, Elder Luli had already sentenced Jun to death in her heart. Rumble. Suddenly, another cracking sound rang out. The eighth wall of fire was suddenly broken, turning into countless sparks. Standing in front of the wall of fire, Yun slowly withdrew his mental energy. His gaze was fixed on Grandmaster Yanhua, who was not far away. He said indifferently, 8 walls of fire. This result has already surpassed yours. Now you can break one of your arms. Silence, a deathly silence. Everyone around the square fell into silence. Their gazes were all fixed on Zhuowen's body and the 8th wall of fire that had already been broken. In this silent atmosphere, Zhuowen's voice was like rolling thunder. It resounded in everyone's ears, causing them to have an illusion of tinnitus. Grandmaster Yanhua was also stunned. His gaze was fixed on the 8th wall of fire that had already been broken. His face was filled with disbelief. How is this possible? How did Zhuon break the 8th wall of fire? He was a complete 4th-tier Arcana Master, but even he couldn't break the 8th wall of fire. So how did Zhuon do it? Could it be that this youth before him is a 5th-tier Arcana Master? When the 8th wall of fire was broken, this was the first thought that appeared in Grandmaster Yanhua's mind. However, this thought was quickly dismissed. Zhuon was too young. How could he be a 5th-tier Arcana Master at such a young age? It's a coincidence. It's definitely a coincidence. Grandmaster Yanhua muttered to himself. On the high platform, the 8 elders stood up one after another. Their pupils shrank as they focused on Zhuon and the 8th wall of fire that had been broken. They were also shocked that Zhuon could break the 8th wall of fire. What made them even more shocked was that when Zhuon broke the 8th wall of fire, he didn't seem to have exerted any effort at all. In other words, the 8th wall of fire was far from Zhuowen's limit. More importantly, Zhuon was still so young. He was only about 20 years old. To be able to achieve such an achievement at such a young age, it could only be said that he was a peerless monster. Grandmaster Yanhua, I believe that you are someone who keeps your promises. Now, you should break one of your arms. Zhuon once again spoke in a clear voice. His clear and melodious voice seemed so abrupt and crisp in the entire square. Sush, sush, sush. Everyone's gazes instantly gathered on Grandmaster Yanhua, who had a gloomy expression on his face. What Zhuon said was the truth. At the beginning, Grandmaster Yanhua had readily agreed to Zhuowen's bet. Now that Zhuon had won, it was time for Grandmaster Yanhua to fulfill his promise. However, did Grandmaster Yanhua really dare to fulfill his promise and break one of his arms? The answer was naturally no. Zhuon, you broke the 8th wall of fire by luck. I don't believe that you broke it with your own strength. You must have used some unknown method. Grandmaster Yanhua's gaze was gloomy. His voice was low and hoarse. He was actually planning to quibble. As soon as Grandmaster Yanhua said this, the surrounding people began to discuss among themselves. Their gazes gathered on Grandmaster Yanhua. Many of them revealed looks of disdain. Grandmaster Yanhua had clearly promised to accept the bet. Now that he had lost, he was actually quibbling. This caused many people to have a bad impression of him. Grandmaster Yanhua naturally heard the discussions of the surrounding people. His expression turned ugly. The prestige he had accumulated in the past had completely fallen today. It was all because of Zhuon, who had suddenly appeared in front of him. You say that I got lucky? Zhuon looked at Grandmaster Yanhua as if he was looking at an idiot. His voice became even colder. Luck is luck. You are only a grade 4 Arcana Master. I don't believe that you broke the 8th wall of fire with your own strength. Grandmaster Yanhua continued to quibble. You say that I didn't break the wall of fire with my own strength? As he spoke, Zhuon stomped his foot once again. An even more terrifying mental energy burst out. Under the effect of this mental energy, the surrounding space almost collapsed. It was extremely terrifying. Rumble. The terrifying mental energy gushed out, forming thousands of mental energy hurricanes in the air. They violently crushed the 9th wall of fire below. A clear shattering sound rang out once again. The ninth wall of fire cracked, and countless tiny sparks flew out. This. When the ninth wall of fire was broken, everyone in the square sucked in a breath of cold air. Their faces were finally filled with shock. The ninth wall of fire was broken by Zhuan just like that? Is this still luck? Why don't you tell me? After breaking the ninth wall of fire, Zhuan stomped his foot forward. His cold gaze was filled with ruthlessness as he stared at Grandmaster Yanhua. Grandmaster Yanhua fell silent. His pupils shrank until they were as small as needles. The ninth wall of fire had been broken by Zhuan. It was useless for him to quibble now. The truth was right in front of him. He, Grandmaster Yanhua, had no choice but to admit that he had lost. Not going to say anything? Are you still not convinced? Then I'll make you accept your loss wholeheartedly. Zhuan coldly snorted. In an instant, countless mental energy gathered. The thousands of mental energy hurricanes in the air were extinguished, and a long spear was formed. This was the mental energy spear. Its power was terrifying and vast. Like an arrow, the long spear pierced through the air and instantly reached the 10th wall of fire. He intends to break the last wall of the 10-fist wall of fire. What a terrifying fellow. As soon as the mental energy spear was formed, everyone guessed Zhuowen's intention. A commotion broke out. Rumble. The mental energy spear collided with the 10th wall of fire. In an instant, a sea of fire spread out, wanting to completely block the mental energy spear. Can it block it? Zhuan muttered to himself. A surge of intent realm was added to the mental energy spear. In an instant, the mental energy spear was surrounded by countless spear shadows, and its power increased dramatically. Crack. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.